Sacred Symbols is sponsored by DraftKings, where you can bet on all of the hottest NFL games in the 2023 season. It's time for you to try DraftKings for yourself. Download the app now and use the code SACRED to sign up. That's SACRED. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code SACRED, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling at 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot King Casino and Resort of Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.com/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's all about your wellness and thus working around your schedule. It's all about allowing you to find a therapist and moving on easily if you'd like to try someone else instead. And it's about helping you break out of whatever emotional cage you're in right now so that you can live your best life. My friends, get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/symbols today. That's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS and get 10% off your first month of therapy sessions. Again, that's betterhelp.com/symbols for professional, high quality, accessible, and effective therapy over video, audio, or text that can help you right now, but only if you're willing to take the first step. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 271. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Reagan. Chris, how are you today, my friend?
I'm good. I'm feeling good lately. I'm feeling really productive. Got a lot done. On the verge of doing a lot more with Sween and Derek over on the Snark Tank. So we're pretty excited about that. But,
what are you going to do?
We're doing more episodes a week because the Patreon's kind of exploding lately, which is really fucking cool.
I'm pleased to hear
kind
this.
of out of nowhere, seemingly like for no reason. Because it's so tangential and not related to. It's not like this where it's like, oh, PlayStation 5's out. There's like a reason. There's like a correlation. It's just like, oh, okay. September people or like August people are into whatever nonsense we're spewing over there. So that's cool. Also excited for tonight because a little game comes out that I'm looking forward to.
Ty the Tasmanian Tiger.
Exactly. 2. Ty the Tasmanian Tiger 2. Legacy of Kain.
Cool. Well, it's good to be here with you guys. Congratulations on your success on Patreon. I find sometimes Patreon does well because it makes sense, and sometimes Patreon does well because it makes no sense at all. I mean, we're at an all-time high on patreon.com/lastdaymedia right now, and I don't know why that would be either. Although I can't really look at it too myopically. There's other shows, right? I like to pretend that Sacred Symbols is the only reason anyone's here. That way it makes it easier for me to think about, but that's not true at all. So there's a whole combination of things, Starfield on Xbox and so on and so forth. Dustin Furman, executive producer, welcome to the show. Who's that? You got your little redhead lady behind you?
Oh, that's not me. Yeah, she's going to become part of the set, but a little closer now. I don't know. I had it here because I used it as a prop on stream. Don't ask me how. Yeah. But now she just kind of stays here. So, and dude, of course, live action One Piece out today on Netflix. Watch the first half hour. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's very fan servicey, not in the titty way, unfortunately. More in the like, oh, remember this song? It's playing in the background. Remember this? Real fans will remember this.
You're like, no, okay. I don't, because there's fucking 8,000 episodes, so I don't remember actually any specific moment of the show because I'm just absorbing it. Do you guys remember that Series of Unfortunate Events movie with Jim Carrey that was like, it like took 3 books and like shoveled it into one movie? I desperately want like M. Night Shyamalan to adapt One Piece. And somehow truncate all those 1,000 episodes into 90 minutes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It'd be awesome.
I want to bring up something totally separate. Chris, you talked about randomly exploding. This is something I noticed for us on YouTube, but in a very weird way. I was saving this to tell you this on the show, Colin. So Sacred Symbols episode 158. It's called Hunting the Hunter. This is the one that we had the death loop thumbnail for. In the last 28 days, it's gotten 28,000 views.
Why do you think that is?
Dude, something's going on with YouTube. The Remedying the Pain episode that has us in the Max Payne style, last 28 days, 24,000 views. Specifically in the last 28 days. You can see on the YouTube algorithm, or not on the analytics, that it's like obviously the big spike when it came out and it just flat, as it normally should be for non-evergreen content. But YouTube's like, you know what? Fire it up, baby. We're spitting these old episodes of Sacred Symbols out to everybody. So who knows? Maybe we have some new listeners this week or the past few weeks from checking out these old episodes thanks to the good old YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, I'm looking here on analytics on YouTube and it says, great news. Your channel got more views from YouTube recommendations. Mm-hmm. Your channel got 640,377 views, more than the 340,000 to 511,000 it usually gets in 28 days. Who knows?
Weird, man. Makes no sense.
Very weird.
Welcome to the Deathloop episode. That was probably also the time I played Deathloop and then didn't even beat it. I beat Deathloop like a year later. So I'm sure there was really great information in there about Deathloop. But nonetheless, welcome to the show, my friends. Good to be here with you guys today. Why did I click out of my document here? There we go. I'm back. There's much to talk about today. Actually, not too many pieces of news in terms of volume, but I would say some big pieces of news that we nonetheless need to get through. Let's get through all the rigmarole here in the beginning, though. Welcome to Sacred Symbols PlayStation Podcast. Get it 3 days early and ad-free over on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. You can join for $1 a month, $2 a month. But the most popular tier by far is the $5 a month tier or higher. And with that, you get early ad-free access to every episode of this show, every episode of Defining Duke, every episode of Punching Up, every episode of Knockback, every episode of Constellation, 2 episodes of Sacred Symbols Plus every week, your DDU episodes, and so on and so forth. Speaking of Sacred Symbols Plus, that's our twice weekly supplement to this very popular show, and we appreciate it. Recent episodes include a deep dive into Baldur's Gate 3 and why you might want to play it. Mapping out our fall approach to video games and the releases that are coming out. Tons of Twisted Metal content for Peacock and the original PS1 game that's now on PSN. I did a mailbag, an impromptu mailbag. Cog fell ill like a Victorian maiden, and so I needed to come in and I like to imagine him. It's not like Maddie where I'm making fun of Maddie. Cog actually really was quite ill. But nonetheless, I like to imagine him in the fainting couch. You know,
right.
Yeah. A little flush, a little worse for wear. So I stepped in and did a mailbag. Ended up going for a really long time. However, a recent episode has really caught people's attention. Aaron Cham Turin wrote into us on Patreon. And remember, that's one of the perks you get over on Patreon as well. You write in on the weekly thread that I put up, and then I delete the thread and you never see it again. Gentlemen, I enjoyed the Hot Take Olympics, and while there were some truly preposterous takes, nothing quite enraged me as much as Dustin proclaiming that he considers a popped collar look to be suave. It is frightening to even consider what the other ways of dressing Dustin might think to be acceptable. Colin, are you not worried that your boy will show up to the wedding dressed in a manner that he considers to be suave? I want him to express himself at the wedding however he chooses. So fewer than 60 days away now, but that is the episode I wanted to call out real quick, because we just did an episode called Hot Take Olympics. This was something Dustin had come up with where maybe we would just share 15 hot takes with each other, 5 each in the PlayStation world, things that people would get mad at. It ended up being a lot of fun. And I came up with that name during the, I don't know. I just like giving serious sounding names to really stupid events. So like the Hot Take Olympics is just actually kind of a perfect name. It's kind of like Secret Sales Saga. That was a cool name too. So really nice job on this, Dustin. We had a lot of fun. People really enjoyed this. So this is a recent perk that you would get on Patreon as well for Sacred Symbols Plus. But Dustin, what's going on here? What are you going to do at my wedding here? How are you going to show up?
Well, okay, I got to respond in 2 ways. First of all, to the wedding, I did consider importing the official JoJo's Bizarre Adventure suits. There was a special collaboration that would cost me a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that. And they're also Japanese sizing. So I just don't think it's going to happen for me. So I considered that. Now, as far as the whole popped collar thing, I realize now when pop collar is like actually flipping up the collar, right? And that's kind of the Jersey Shore look or whatever. I probably shouldn't have said that. I kind of meant more just like the fine, when you have like a fine suit collar and it's, looking not popped up. I do you know what I'm trying to say here?
It's no. So what you're saying is you've just never understood what the phrase popped collar meant.
I know what it means, but I guess in that context I didn't use it the right way.
Okay.
He's got a nice collar, a nice clean cut collar on him, the PS5.
Man, I don't know. He just looks like it's like, it just reminds me of those images of what is it, Seto Kaiba in Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever, like where everybody photoshopped Kaiba onto the PS5. Dude, it's like, yeah, that's entirely right.
So when we were having this discussion, Chris, you said that you thought the PS5 looked like a date rapist and that you hid him behind your TV. Someone in our Discord said anytime what Chris sees when he looks behind his TV, it was the picture of the PlayStation executive that got caught on the pedophile. Oh. I was like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's good. So, that remains frustrating to me because there's two funny things about that guy getting caught. The pedophile catchers on YouTube is that video is what got me into watching those, was because it was a PlayStation executive, just some nameless dude. I have no idea who he actually is. Many executives there. But the second one is that one's so frustrating because he's the one person that I've watched out of hundreds of them now across all these channels that just goes inside and doesn't say anything. It's like the one dude that would have been so interesting to crack the nut. He just slips back in, gets fired. We never hear from him again. But usually these guys go on for like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
There's this one guy. He's like, his name is Gordon Flowers. He's a little bit brustly. People might recognize him because he does a lot of like weird, like attention seeking things on the internet. He's like this obese dude with like a beard and he's like in the South somewhere, but he goes and finds these guys, but it's fucking awesome because he lulls them into such an amazing sense of security. You know how I was telling you about the one guys in Colorado that go and they make them call their wives and stuff? That's good shit for its own reason.
Yeah, Colorado Pet Patrol, yeah.
Right, exactly, Colorado Pet Patrol. And those guys are amazing. But this guy does it differently where he acts like he's their friend. And it's perfect, dude, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Because he gets them to admit everything. He'll do things. He'll be like, yeah, so I know there's a lot of bad guys out there on the internet. I know you're not one of them or whatever. You know, when did you get sucked into this? How long you've been doing this? You know, like that kind of stuff. And then they just they tell him everything. It's and then at the end of every one they get arrested, which is hysterical.
Colin, you should watch a reoccurring character that comes up on this on the show, the Jared Fogle documentary. I watched it. Pretty interesting. This has there's a woman that also did the same thing, pretended to be his friend and potential lover in order to expose all of his secrets. So this kind of might be down your alley. How
did he think he was going to get away with that? Jared Fogle. Like he's not some anonymous dude, right? Like you would think that there's some creepy, horrible people on the dark web or whatever you never see. They work a random job, whatever. You're Jared Fogle, dude.
He went mad with sandwich power.
Oh my.
Yeah. Power of Subway compelled him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it did.
Yes. That was like the most ominous way I'd ever heard that statement said before.
Thank you.
Another question about sacred symbols we got. Alex Shoot wrote in and said, gentlemen and Chris, the Gran Turismo movie has been out for a while and doesn't seem to have had the mention on the show at all. Do any of you intend on seeing it? I thought it was excellent. And another notch in Sony's revitalized multimedia approach to their games. So we are going to do a Sacred Symbols Plus about that. I know Dagan's going to be involved in it. Are either of you doing it?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm planning on it. I need to see it this weekend.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to go see it Monday.
Is it in theaters?
Yeah, it's in theaters.
Yeah.
It's in theaters.
I have to see because I swear to God that like I've been in the movies kind of a lot lately and I haven't even seen it on like the digital marquee or anything. Maybe I got to check again.
It was number one over the weekend in the United States, but it barely beat Barbie on its 6th week. So it's not like it's doing awesome.
Yeah.
It is supposed to be pretty good though. So we'll see.
Is it streaming?
No, I don't think so. Not yet anymore.
All right. I'll find a theater.
Yeah, I'm going to go see it and I'll see it on Monday because what are we doing? Oh yeah, Sunday I have to go to like a birthday party for my niece. And so yeah, Monday, because I'm also in, so that all works out perfectly because I can get up during the day and just go see Gran Turismo. Then I got to come back because I'm talking to Sandeep Rai, good friend of mine over in the UK. We've had on the show several times, who does a lot of PlayStation centric books and Vita books and all these kinds of things. And he's coming back on to talk about a new project that he's working on that I have a little bit of something to do with. Not much, but a little bit of something to do with it. All right. Anything else to promote? Rather, I was gonna say propagate. I mean, that would be fine too.
I mean,
merch. Yeah, it's the same thing, really. Merch at laststandmedia.store. Thank you so much for that. By the time this goes live, Micah will be 1 day away from having shipped all 500 games completely by herself. Like, from stem to stern. The only help she's gotten is that my nephew putting all the blue shipping boxes together. Otherwise, she's done all of it. And as far as cobbling it all together. And it's pretty amazing. So many congratulations to her. I know it's been stressing her out. I've been trying to tell her, you don't have to put this much pressure on yourself. Like, I'm sorry. We got this game out 10 times quicker than limited run games would have gotten the game out. And we're doing this all out of our house with really one person managing it. So it's pretty awesome. And I'm really proud of her. I saw today, Dustin, and I emailed you back that we're going to do the second run of Super Perils of Baking, 500 other copies sold, probably on Black Friday, for the same price, but in a different box. And I saw the box today, and I think it looks great. Arguably, I think it's better than the first one, to be honest. Yeah. Not exactly my cup of tea, as it were, maybe, perhaps, but very iconic nonetheless. And I'm looking forward to releasing that. So you can get your shirts and your sweatshirts and your hats and all that. And we'll have more merch soon. Stickers, free shipping on all stickers domestically here in these United States. And finally, leave us nice reviews on podcast services, comments on videos. You can like us, etc. and so on. We appreciate you. For some reason, the algorithm likes us right now on YouTube. That won't last forever, I'm sure. And I'll have to fade into obscurity one day. Okay. Let's see here. Let's get into the few things the audience wanted to write into before we get into some of the game news, the smaller game news. We'll talk about what we're playing. We'll get into the bigger game news. We'll wrap things up as we always do with listener inquiries. But let's hear from a listener right now. Expert Specialist wrote in and touched my heart. He said, "Hey there, CDC. Been listening to Colin for most of my adult life at this point, going back to the beginnings of Beyond. So first time, long time. Thank you for writing in. Colin, while listening to last week's episode when talking about the glasses that Maddie was wearing, you made a reference to the Can Hardly Wait Seth Green goggles. Being a 39-year-old man myself, I couldn't help but laugh out loud while listening in my car. However, I also noticed that neither Chris nor Dustin made any kind of reaction whatsoever. My assumption is that the movie was either before their time or they have no clue what they're talking about. So I'm curious, do thoughts or references ever come to mind that you hold back because you know they weren't part of your co-host experience being 10 years your junior? No. I treat Dustin and Chris much like Dagan has always treated me. As being older than we are, understanding things that we probably shouldn't understand and having a greater cultural reference point or series of reference points than perhaps you would without that older influence. However, did you guys understand the Can Hardly Wait Seth Green goggles reference?
I have no idea what that is.
All right, let me see. All right, so do you guys know what the movie Can Hardly Wait is?
No, I have not. I personally have not seen Can Hardly Wait, the film with a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes and 6.5 on IMDb.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say. I was going to send it to you. That's exactly what I was going to send you. It's so funny. This is a seminal movie from my freshman year in high school. It's just a teen movie from that era. But if you see Seth Green looking, and he's got these goggles on, right?
Yeah.
And this was like something that for a brief millisecond, people were attempting to do.
Dude, I remember specifically people thinking goggles were like cool. Like for some reason, I remember this. Like it was like, I think I remember it more specifically with like Digimon, because I think
I was about to bring that up. Ty.
I think Ty and Digimon had goggles, and there were other characters like in like cartoons or like TV shows that would wear goggles as like a sign of like they were like nerds or like they could invent shit. And it was just like, oh, I want to make a robot or whatever. I'm gonna wear goggles to define my personality. It was a weird. I remember that time, like despite the fact that I was like 7, not even probably like I was like 5 in 1998 when this movie came out. So like the idea that was like it wasn't even for a brief millisecond. Then it was like for like maybe like 5-7 years. That was like a trope that they were really trying to push goggles.
I always remembered this movie and this poster for some reason. It's a fine movie, but I remember it being so adult. It felt like I remember feeling that way about Varsity Blues when it came out too, because I was probably in 9th or 10th grade, and I'm like, wow, this is like cool. Like, this is what the fucking cool dudes do that are a little older or whatever. And Can't Hardly Wait was all about, do you want to fuck the girl? Do you want to drink the beer? Do you want to like do all these things at the party or whatever?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so crazy. Because I was going into 9th grade, I think, when Can't Hardly Wait came out. So
yeah.
I don't know.
But
I remember this fucking Seth Green goggle thing. You know?
I'm looking at this image and I'm getting like flashbanged by all these moments in my head that I can remember, like these goggles being pushed on me. It's very bizarre.
The face he's making there actually in that poster reminds me of the Planet of the Bass guy a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
He's got that look a little bit.
That guy's getting a little too on the paint with it. There's something happening where he's doing interviews as that guy, and it's like it's too much, man. It's getting
we're reaching
that territory.
I loved the whole European-centric meta of him doing a song with a girl and it being really popular, and then doing remixes and it's never the same girl.
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. That was smart.
I thought that was fun, but you got to let it go there, I think.
Yeah, you can't give. Yeah, you can't give interviews as the character. There was somebody who did that like a long time ago. Like I think it was like some guy named like Ben Hoffman or whatever. He had like a country persona on his show that got canceled, and then like, now it's 15 years later and he has like 5 studio albums as that guy.
Whoa.
It's interesting.
And it's like, you just became this joke.
It's like, it's like if David Bowie just stayed as Ziggy Stardust.
Exactly.
Yeah. R.I.P.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mark Rios wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC, this question is for Colin. When did you transition from beardless glasses Colin to bearded no glasses Colin, aka Chad Colin? What brought this massive change and how do you feel about it today? I wonder if there will be another Colin phase later down the line. Perhaps when you're older, you'll attempt the David Jaffe big white Santa Claus beard look. Thanks for reading." He does have a good and interesting look, doesn't he? David Jaffe. This is funny. I had this pair of glasses that I really, really loved. They were this, and I'm in a bunch of videos and photos with them. They were this black matte glasses and they were awesome. And I lost them in a cab in New York City in 2017.
Oh,
and
no.
I got more glasses after that, but it never quite felt the same. And then I tried to find those lenses or those frames, and they were like out of print or whatever. They didn't make them anymore. And then I was like, I don't need to do this anymore. And I just stopped wearing glasses completely. So the thing is that I didn't ever really need them too much. I am nearsighted, or I was nearsighted, and I was actually just telling my uncle about this, and he was like, this isn't true. This isn't possible. I'm like, no, it is. And it did happen, is that my eyes got stronger until the point where I basically have 20/20 vision now. I had like -1.5, I think, at the most. And then it slowly got better to the point where they started spoofing my prescription because my insurance wouldn't cover my glasses. And I had that aesthetic where I wanted to wear them or whatever. And to the point where I think it got to -0.25, which is the lowest you can get. And I'm like, I don't need these anymore. So I haven't worn glasses in 4 years or so. And then I started growing the beard in like late 2014, right before I left IGN. And I've never shaved it off since then. So I've had it for 9 years at this point. I did get it really low once, and I was like, what happened to my face? My face looked really small and unusual without it. I was very self-conscious about it. But I don't think there's anything wrong. It's just I'm not used to looking at it. So I just kept the beard. I think the beard's a good look, though. You know?
Yeah.
But there was a time when I didn't have it. That's true.
Yeah. I think it suits. It
I need to do
your
some
current style.
Yeah. My vagabond pirate face.
That's so funny though that you say that about the glasses, because like I need glasses, so like I don't have the luxury of just like abandoning them. Also, like I just don't like contact lenses at all. I don't like the experience of just poking my eye every morning twice, and then like just under, like always feeling them like on the surface of my eye.
It's truly preposterous.
It's truly
babies.
No, man, it's a deeply. What is the point?
So you don't have to wear smudgy glasses that constantly get dirty, that glare when you're on camera. All these dudes are so annoying.
Oh man, it would be so difficult to clean my glasses in a fraction of a fucking millisecond, as opposed to
poke your eye out
30 million times a day.
I got a slight microfiber in my contacts. Better run to the bathroom for fucking 5 minutes. And hope to God I have contact solution on it. It's just such a preposterous fucking solution. I hate it.
Oh, I lost my contact. Either losing it in the environment or in your eye.
Yeah, It's just like rolling back to your
These
brain.
are amateur mistakes.
Dude, if I lost my contact in my eye, I'd fucking kill myself probably. I couldn't even begin to fathom what I would think or feel at that point.
I don't think you would kill yourself. But it is a thoroughly unpleasant experience. Look, man, I don't know, man. To me, it's. But I had a similar experience where like I had these glasses that I really, really loved, and they weren't too dissimilar to this, but they were like slimmer. They weren't as tall. It was more like. I wouldn't say visor exactly, but it was that thin, you know. It was almost like an IMAX screen on my glasses, and I loved them. And then when I went to go get my glasses again, they just didn't make that frame anymore. And this was like the closest that I could find. I was like, oh man! And they transformed the look of your entire face. Like even if it's like a slightly different shape, a slightly different size, it just alters the way your face looks. And it's always bothered me that I could never find those slimmer frames again. But I'd rather just have glasses.
Yeah, I liked wearing them. They were cool. They're a good accessory. And I kept wearing them in LA. So I lost them. I lost those glasses right when I moved to LA, like a few months later. And then I kept wearing older pair of glasses because the one key is that I really can't be in sunlight with my eyes because, and this wasn't a problem until I started wearing glasses because I had transition lenses. So you just never really felt the full effect. So when I go outside, I'd be like a fucking vampire walking into the light. And I would realize, so I needed to keep wearing those glasses when I would go out and about, specifically for the glare. And then now I just wear sunglasses because down here it's fucking.
I have
surface of the sun down here.
Yeah, I have prescription shades that I've worn them on the show before, but I can't do transition lenses.
There was so funny that there were several responses I saw on Twitter that would just earnestly thinking that it was just straight up serious.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's fucking awesome. This is awesome.
The edit was there was some, was it Locke?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He knows when to strike. He knows when the iron's hot.
It was so swift. That's why I was like, is this Locke? Like I thought it might have just been like some like weird fan who just like got it quickly, but I was like, oh shit, this is so good.
Yeah, it was. I just loved how I kept talking at the end. Like we just kept talking over each other at the end. It was very, very funny. Like it just kept going with no edit.
Yeah.
Colin, after that episode we did with Locke, the Constellation, you were saying you like him the rougher the better. He was earning points. Initially, he posted that just in the Discord. I'm like, why don't you post that on Twitter? He's like, I don't know. Is it too mean? I'm like, dude, you pretty much have full clearance to do whatever you want. You could, just do it.
People are mean to me all the time. Are you kidding me? You're very welcome to be mean to me if you're a friend of mine, or in our circle. I believe that you must be able to take it as well as you give it.
I will say that edit looks so volatile. It's so funny. Like it's such a volatile.
He hammed it up a bit.
It's good though.
Yeah. I need more from him. Like, I don't know. I think Maddie's basically completely subsumed his life or something. Because I just never see his stuff coming through anymore. It's like, where is Lockmore? Like, what is he doing? Like, he has not that much to. I know he doesn't have that much to do. Let's be serious. He lives in Europe.
Yeah.
Right. He lives in Europe. They give you everything for free over there. So
sure.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I've been hearing tell of an edit that's been in the works. But I think it keeps getting delayed. Sometimes he waits for certain things to happen. He's like waiting for the right
certain things to happen. What does that mean? What is he? Can he see into the future, or is he just waiting for
he's just
like
rolling the dice.
Muse like inspiration?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I know he's working on one right now, but I don't know. Maybe this will put some pressure on him.
It should.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'd like to see much more. I'd like to see an order of magnitude more Lockmore edits.
He does have to. It takes him a very long time to cut them together because he has to jump around multiple episodes and do all kinds of stuff.
Right. It requires a comedic touch. He's doing a lot for one person because it's not like he has to identify the content. He has to source the content. He's got to edit the content. He's got to do all the writing and the comedy and making it all work. And I think he's gotten better and better because I think there were a few in the beginning where I'm like, I don't think this is very funny. But I always noticed that when it didn't matter what I thought, I'd go into the comments for everyone and people would think they were funny. But then they started consistently becoming funny. And so you could, in my opinion, for me. And so I felt he kind of hit his rhythm. But then I feel like he became too talented And then my friends started poaching all of the talent. And now I don't have them anymore. Now to each their own. I want that. I remember telling you, like, I don't ever want you to feel locked to this company, Dustin. If you feel like you can go spread your wings, and do more, be more, whatever, you know. So same for Lockmore. Why not the same for Lockmore? You know, but at the same time, I'm too lazy to find someone else to do any of that stuff. Yeah. And so everything that I need done basically just goes to you.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
And then so now we're back at square one. Oh boy. All right. I'm looking though. We did put the Glizzy Gobbler was the latest short we put up.
Oh yeah.
The shorts do pretty good traffic. I mean, I don't know how they're supposed to do. I've heard they're bad for your algorithm, and I heard you can't make any money on them, but I still think that they're funny to do. The YouTube money is really just extra money. I'm not going to say I don't care about the YouTube money. The YouTube money is enough to pay one of your salaries, or like someone's salary in this, which is awesome, but it's not really why we're there.
Yeah.
We're there because you're there. It's kind of like why I go on Rumble to watch the Predator poacher videos where they get crazy and they rough the guy up or whatever. You know, like vigilante kind of style justice, only allowed on Rumble. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by DraftKings, where you can bet on all of the hottest NFL games in the 2023 season. Learn more now by downloading the DraftKings app and use the code SACRED when you sign up. My friends, you damn well understand the NFL season represents my favorite single event every year, and if you don't, well, allow me to regale you. I'm a diehard Jets fan, as most of you know, and I never ever miss a game. Indeed, all I do on Sundays during the season is watch football, and on Monday night and Thursday night, and then there's the Thanksgiving games, the Black Friday game, and the Christmas tripleheader, and I guess what I'm saying is the NFL season represents a lifestyle change for many of us, and along with that comes the ability to gamble a few bucks on some games of your choosing. After all, DraftKings is an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and they're giving you a can't-miss offer for Week 1, which is right around the corner. New DraftKings customers who sign up with the code SACRED can get $200 in bonus bets instantly. All you have to do is put $5 of your own on any NFL game. It's that simple. Better yet, all customers new and old will get 2 new offers every single game day for the entire month of September, relayed via the DraftKings app. That means Sundays, yes, but Mondays and Thursdays too. It's time for you to try DraftKings for yourself. Download the app now and use the code SACRED to sign up. That's SACRED. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code SACRED, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling at 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot King Casino and Resort of Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.com/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by BetterHelp, the accessible, effective, affordable, and convenient way to seek the therapy you may need. Find out more now at betterhelp.com/symbols. So as someone who has long suffered from depression and anxiety, I totally understand what it means to be caught up in your own head, about all sorts of issues real and imagined, struggling to cope with everything life is throwing at you. You may be like I've been in the past, always functioning but often barely so, keeping my head above water but just a little. Of course, your experience is your own, and could be and likely is very different. But I found in my own life that talking to someone about what I'm experiencing is a great way to work through everything. Over the years, it's made me a believer in the efficacy of therapy, and indeed, I'm seeing a therapist right now in my own life, as I have at many different points. What bums me out, though, is that not everyone is as fortunate as I am. I have access to good providers near my house. I have a way of getting to these appointments, and perhaps most importantly, my insurance covers the bill. But therapy and all of its myriad uses shouldn't be only for those who can afford coverage or have the monetary and environmental opportunity to utilize these services. Therapy should be for everyone. That's why I'm such a big fan of BetterHelp. With BetterHelp, you can speak to a licensed therapist over the net, via video, audio, or even just through text. When you sit and think about it, why wouldn't and couldn't therapy work from afar? Thing is, it very much does. BetterHelp's entire shtick is providing high-quality care in a convenient and flexible manner, so that you're eager to utilize their services as they fit within the rhythms of your specific life. It's all about your wellness and thus working around your schedule. It's all about allowing you to find a therapist and moving on easily if you'd like to try someone else instead. And it's about helping you break out of whatever emotional cage you're in right now so that you can live your best life. My friends, get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/symbols today. That's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS and get 10% off your first month of therapy sessions. Again, that's betterhelp.com/symbols for professional, high quality, accessible, and effective therapy over video, audio, or text that can help you right now, but only if you're willing to take the first step. All right. Let's see here. Chicken Adobo wrote in. Now we're getting into the items we need to actually discuss this week. How long did it take? It only took us 29 minutes to about a half an hour.
Yeah, record time.
Chicken Adobo says, greetings, sacred sultry sirs. He has a correction, and he says, as a resident audio enthusiast in the community, and this, I want to just let you know that this infuriated me. Just so I'm going to let you know, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I would like to make a minor correction for last week's episode that Audeze, so that's what we were saying, Audeze. Remember, we were saying Sony bought the audio company and we were calling it Audeze, Audeze, is pronounced Audussy, like the word Odyssey, with a weird spelling. I would just like to correct this early as it could potentially see a lot more from them. This is a very exciting to see acquisition as Audussy has some really cool tech that Sony could use to improve their audio products. Hopefully they're able to bring stuff like their head tracking technology to improve VR experiences and incredible planner drivers to more attainable price point with Sony's mass manufacturing. They also have some of my favorite gaming headsets with the Maxwell, Penrose, and the ridiculous Audussy GX. Audussy is a brand much loved by the audiophile community as they sell incredible sounding headphones for music and gaming. If you guys get the chance to try them, the LCD2C, LCD5, and even CBRN are ridiculous, but really cool experiences for gaming. And I'm really excited to see their future with Sony. So 2 things to say about this. Multiple people commented about this, but what I was surprised about was that this was the only correction published or posted into our thread this week, which indicates to me that a vast majority of people had no idea that that was the way it was pronounced. So I didn't feel too bad about it. The second thing is that, and this is a full circle thing for me, I'm having Mark Ryan Sully on Sacred Symbols Plus. That name might be unknown to you, but it's a name very, very near and dear to my heart because he is the person who hired me at IGN. And these days, he left IGN. So Mark Ryan and I wrote strategy guides together. I was a freelancer. A guy named Chris Carl was in charge of us. Chris Carl went to CBS and is still there today, leaving Mark Ryan in charge. And when someone left the guides team when I graduated college, Mark Ryan was the one who offered me my job and hired me. And I worked under him for years. He was the guy whose studio apartment I slept on the floor during the summer of 2004. We were boys, and he's a good friend of mine. He's going to be at the wedding, so I'm really excited to see him. But he ended up rising to head of product at IGN. He left editorial and for 10 years had this kind of more product front facing thing going on, became kind of a self-taught programmer and all that stuff, left and is doing other things now, but has a popular audio YouTube channel that does very good traffic. And he's going to come on to talk about this company because I reached out to him. I was thinking about it and I was saying, I think I finally figured out a way for us to collaborate because I'm going to be fascinated to talk about him because he's one of those guys who I knew who loved video games, just loved them. Obviously, working at IGN, writing strategy guides, all that. And then suddenly it was like, I can't do it anymore. I just stopped playing games, for the most part. Like very random. He probably plays Gran Turismo or some shit like that. And I've always been fascinated by that. And I knew him during that time. We also used to love going often, probably went 100 times, to an awesome cheeseburger place in San Francisco that I highly recommend. It must still be there, called Bull's Head. And that was our spot, Bull's Head. If you guys ever check that out, really, really good burgers. You can get bison burgers there too, and ostrich burgers as well.
Ooh.
If you're interested in those things. So he's going to be on. We're going to talk about this. He was really excited. I told him about the acquisition the day of, and he hadn't even known. He's like, that's huge, dude. That's a really big deal. We'll have a lot to talk about. So please look forward to it, that episode of Sacred Symbols Plus. But Chris, I can't allow it to be called Audussy with that spelling. I just don't know how you're even supposed to know that.
It's spelled Audis. That's what they spelled it. Like I don't know what to like. I don't care. You can call it that, I guess. But you should have thought about it. You should have thought about that when you were naming the fucking company.
Yeah, it's a bad name. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like it's not even that it's a bad name. It's a bad spelling for that name. You know what I mean? Like it's not like Audussy is not a bad name, but like that's a horrible way to spell that.
Yeah, I guess that's what I mean too.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's because Audis, I think, is like a fine. It's totally. It reminds me of a little bit of Adidas. You know what I mean? Where it's like or Adidas. Fucking
Adidas.
You fucking freaks.
Yeah, totally. You're right.
But yeah, I don't know. That bothered me personally because I genuinely thought it was Audis, and I'm pretty like. I feel like I'm really, really good at understanding how certain things are pronounced based on just looking at the spelling of them. Like I'm uncannily good at that with like European names and like weird, like just like weird, like bizarre last names that I have no reason to understand. You know, like I know how to pronounce them. So like this bothers me. I feel like just one quickly. Yeah, I feel like it is. I feel like it was Audis, and there were a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's Audussy," and then they were like, "I guess," and they ran with it.
Right. It's
That's
the Colin Powell situation, right?
Exactly.
As we've outlined many times on this show. Dustin, what about a tertiary pronunciation? Audussy.
Audussy. Well, I was going to say Audi's nuts, you know?
Yeah. I made that joke last week. That's why I didn't want to make it again.
Yeah.
And I kind of made it at a bad time. Like I kind of just threw it away. It deserved more than I gave it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always a shame.
This name's absolutely sucks. And I gotta also say, if we're talking about bad names, I've never liked the name audiophile because it has pedophile implications. You know?
Yeah, file in general, like cinephile as well. It's like just you like movies. It's fine. Like you don't gotta invoke the Fogel of it all. You know?
Wow.
The Fogel. That's like that should be the new nomenclature. For the Fogeling. The Fogel.
Oh, no.
All right, my friends. Let's get into the news items, the smaller news items I wanted to discuss with you. There's only a few. A couple happened right before we recorded the show, making the show a little meatier, a little juicier, putting a little meat on the bone. GamesIndustry.biz, which we often reference on the show, a good website. Wrote a story, and this is sponsored, so it's important to note that this is actually like a piece of marketing in some way, but that's irrelevant to me because it has good information. It's called The U.S. Video Game Industry Gets Back to Growth, and Circana, which is the MPD group, is the one that paid for this to kind of get this information out. I suppose probably as a way, what do they call this? What's the word? Like an advertorial. That's what it is. Advertorial. You know, when you'd open like a magazine and it's written like an article, but it's actually kind of advertising something. So I think they're advertising their metrics. So it's important to note that, I guess. However, in here, and there's a lot of interesting information if you guys want to look about how much money people are spending and all the rest, and who's playing games. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a little while, specifically about who's playing games in terms of gender. But they wrote this, quote, after a period of post-launch constraints that both limited sales potential while also causing planners across the industry to pull out significant amounts of hair, supply of new hardware has become more readily available. PlayStation 5 has been particularly strong over the past year, with its supply noticeably improving beginning in July 2022. We expect PlayStation 5 to remain the hardware market sales leader into at least 2025. Now, here's where the interesting that's not a surprise. Here's where the interesting stats come in. Despite the supply constraints early in the generation, each console is comparing well to prior hardware releases. On a comparative basis, PlayStation 5 is now trending 5% above PlayStation 4 and 87% ahead of PlayStation 3 in time-aligned units sold life to date, while Xbox Series trails Xbox One by 10%, yet leads Xbox 360 by 6%. End quote. Wanted to start here today. This is very interesting. This is American data. It's important to note that. It's also important to note that America is the most vital console gaming market in the world. So that is that should be indicative of how maybe things are trending around the Western world anyway. Dustin, I want to go to you first. What do you think about this? PlayStation 5 selling a little bit better than PS4 with all those supply constraints and a higher price point in a worse economy. So a good sign for PlayStation as a brand. 87% ahead of PlayStation 3 is impressive until you consider that this would count the pre-Slim era. So that it's outselling at 2-1 is not a surprise. PS3 really pulled it out after Uncharted 2 and the PS3 Slim launch. So I would like to see those numbers next year to see how things are aligned, because PS3 started murdering. But I was also interested in the Xbox stuff, Because I do remember that Xbox One was trailing ahead of Xbox 360 domestically, I guess, for a period of time. But Xbox 360 had a year ahead on the market more than PS3 at this time and seemed to have been doing really well, which I guess means we're not yet in the period time aligned where Xbox 360 itself was showing dominance. So these stats are interesting, but they're incomplete. I'm wondering what you think about what's written here.
I wonder if there's just a case where we are seeing the gaming market grow still outside of what it was. And I guess we've seen the overall market for people interested in consoles just grow in general since the advent of them. But I wonder if in particular, we're still kind of seeing a rise from either COVID when people were checking out gaming that didn't normally just because they were stuck at home. But also, whether it's not even just PlayStation related stuff with PlayStation Productions, but is it possible that just with all of the video game related media out there that isn't video games, that we're also just seeing more people be interested in it as well? I think that's a possibility. It's definitely surprising to see it outpace PS4 and just the matter of the fact that for so long during this generation, if you only had a PS4, you really weren't missing out on a lot because of the cross-gen. So yeah, sure, you're going to get a way better experience on PlayStation 5, but you could conceivably hold on to your PS4 and still play all of the main releases. So you would think that would be a reason that could indicate that it would trail behind just because of people not upgrading. But clearly there's something with PS5 that was compelling enough. And despite, as you mentioned, the hardware constraints, that people really, really want this device. They're going out and they're buying them to the point where it's more than they were buying PlayStation 4 last time.
What do you have to add to this, Chris? Where do you see these statistics? They are, again, incomplete. I think Dustin makes some interesting points. I'm wondering if you find anything here that you wanted to pull out.
I don't know. I guess what's most confusing about this for me, and I guess it's really more about me not really paying attention to stats in the same way around this time, is that it's just surprising to me that the Xbox One was ever at all outpacing the 360, because, I mean, both culturally and personally, the 360 was just so much better of a machine and seemed so much more ubiquitous. Like that, I guess it's just like a general misconception on my part, but like that's just bizarre that that's true to me. Like it's almost hard for me to even reconcile that with reality. But I guess 360 was struggling. I guess that's probably like, well, maybe not struggling. I maybe the red ring didn't help. You know, that probably wasn't the best. But I found that to be the most fascinating. It's not surprising to me that PlayStation 5 is doing as well as it's doing. It's been doing really, really well for a while, despite supply constraints, and we've known that for a while. So it finally getting to this point where it's kind of outpacing PS4 was really a matter of time, especially considering they haven't really faltered as far as content goes, and they haven't had like a massive blunder or anything that would lead to something like, oh, people stop buying. So I expected this at some point.
I don't mean to have a non sequitur here, but I just was informed that the PlayStation Portal is available for pre-order right now.
Oh,
with a release date of November 15th. So I had Micah bring my wallet because I am getting it. Let's see. Continue to payment.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Because at a glance, Micah walked in and then she kind of leaned down and then left, and then you said, you were like, I don't mean to, I've just been informed. It reminded me of Bush reading the
9/11 is happening.
Yeah.
Mr. President, 9/11 is happening.
A PlayStation Portal has just hit the second tower.
For a lot of people, the PlayStation Portal is their 9/11.
Yeah.
Wow.
Of course.
But
reading those comments last week, you're actually probably right about that.
Yeah, all right. I got mine pre-ordered here. Looks like. Is that going?
Was there a grand kerfuffle in the comments?
I think if we want to get into this, people are just think it sucks a lot. Well, the loud people are like this.
Yeah, do I have anything in here about the Portal? I guess I don't. Yeah, so we can talk about that if you'd like. Let's segue right into it. Post reactions.
Post reactions. Well, I'm just going to repeat what I said last week in that.
Well, hold on a sec. Tell me what you were going to say about what people were going to saying first. I want to hear about that first. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the reaction was just surprised that we even made an argument for certain people having a use case for this device.
I don't get how that's lost on people. I explained it to them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Not and to be clear, this wasn't like it wasn't like an insane reaction where all these comments, but I did see quite a few that were like, how can they like the Portal? How can they think it's like, dude, I'm not even saying I'm not. I need to know if it works. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And if it works, then I'm gonna be like, yes, absolutely, certain people should get this. If you're the use case, if you want to watch sports on a Sunday, if you have a partner that wants to use TV, if it works, cool. I think that $200 maybe is a tiny bit on the high end for what it is, but it's not out of any kind of Sony price structure that we've seen from them really since the launch of the PlayStation 5. So
yeah.
The people that are like, well, it doesn't work outside your house. It's like, you're not getting a portable PlayStation 5.
But I was under the impression that it did. Right?
Well, yeah, it does.
It works as long as you're connected to the internet. So like, I think how, and I heard this, and I might be misremembering this, but I'm pretty sure like you can go, if you're like on a trip somewhere and like you're flying to, I don't know, New York or something, and you're staying over somebody's house, you can use it to connect to the internet. And I think it streams your PS5 to your Portal. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you can do that with Backbone now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you couldn't do that with Portal, that would be a weird omission.
So you couldn't play it in like a cab, right, or anything like that.
Exactly.
But you know, I don't know who's doing.
Well, I just think I don't know, man. There's such an aggravation right now with everything.
Yeah.
In the PlayStation space, there just is. We're going to get into that with PS Plus later, and that's more understandable, and we'll talk deeply about that. But like, everyone just hates everything, and I just don't get it. I'm explaining to you how this is really valuable to me. People have written in and made their cases in various places, and I've read how it would be valuable to them. I'm hearing a lot from parents, spouses with a single nice TV, people that just want to play in bed, and people are like, you can just get a cheap this and do it. It's like, dude, it's video games. Things cost money to do, to exercise in the industry, and playing on this with a backbone controller is not going to be the same as playing on the PlayStation Portal.
Yeah,
it's not. Right. So I'm just, the argument, if you don't want to spend the money, if you're not into it, that's totally cool. But do we have to hate everything? Like, yes. Every fucking thing.
Yes.
I just, it's actually becoming exhausting even for me. And I'm known as being a major critic of everything. And even I'm tired of it. Everything sucks. Everything has to be made fun of. Everything's undercut. Nothing's good enough. It's just, I don't get it. I feel like I'm having a great time on PlayStation 5 personally. I'm playing games left, right, and center on there. Am I disappointed with the first and second party output? Absolutely. Not from a quality standpoint, but from a volume standpoint. Is that going to be increased? Hopefully in the future, will we learn something? I think it's getting pretty dire, and we have to talk about those things and acknowledge that exists. But yeah. I personally don't have PlayStation just to play first and second party games. I by far play third party games on PlayStation, have always done that, and feel like the kit I'm playing on right now with the beautiful TV and the DualSense, I'm having a great time with the games I'm playing. So I just don't understand this undercurrent of just complete disenchantment. Why? Because of what? Exactly. I don't know. It's becoming exhausting. And this is another example where I looked at this thing and I knew people were going to beat it up. And I'm like, but why? It's cool. I don't know if it's going to work. Maybe it's going to suck. Right. Maybe its form factor sucks. Maybe it made it be heavy. I don't know. I mean, we should know the dimensions of it. But when you feel it and hold it, I don't know, man. I just don't quite understand the animus about this. And the need to not, the need to say, not just this isn't for me or I don't want this, but that this can't be for anyone. And why would anyone want this?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I forgot that Animus was a word outside of Assassin's Creed for a second.
Yeah, the Animus.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, I have mine. I pre-ordered it. I'm looking at my pre-order confirmation right here, so I'll look forward to it. November 15th, there are details on PlayStation Blog. You can only pre-order it as of the time we're talking on PlayStation Direct, but that's fine. I've had no problems with them. I think I got my PS5 through them and my PSVR 2, right? And one of the PS5s and the PSVR 2 through them, and there's been no problems so far.
The only time it sounds like they really fucked up was with that Last of Us special edition that they didn't send in proper packages.
Oh, yeah,
do you remember that?
Got all fucked up. And then they say they weren't going to do anything about it, but then they did do something about it. Or there's something about that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The other stuff, dude, my PS5 came, and I think it was like priority. A FedEx man showed up at like 10 a.m. on launch day. So
that's always a great feeling.
It was nice, but yeah.
Okay. Let's see. That was a little bit of a decide. Anything else to say about PlayStation Portal? I went on a little diatribe there myself. So, all right. This news broke right before we started recording, and it's sad news, but maybe predictable in Embracer's new reality where they are hemorrhaging money and need to figure things out. But they've shut down, Embracer Group has shut down Volition, according to a post on LinkedIn. And this was a little bit of a surprise, even with the performance of Saints Row that came out last year. And that's going to be on PlayStation Plus. We're going to talk about that. But they wrote on LinkedIn, of all places, quote, "The Volition team has proudly created world-class entertainment for fans around the globe for 30 years. We've been driven by a passion for our community and always work to deliver joy, surprise, and delight. This past June, Embracer Group announced a restructuring program to strengthen Embracer and maintain its position as a leader in the video game industry. As part of that program, they evaluated strategic and operational goals and made the difficult decision to close Volition effective immediately. To help our team, we are working to provide job assistance and help smooth the transition for our Volition family members. We thank our customers and fans around the world for all the love and support over the years. You will always be in our hearts." End quote. This is sad for a number of reasons. Volition's old, and so it's always sad to see an old studio close. They used to be known as Parallax. And I don't know if you guys remember, there was an FPS series called Descent that they were well known for on PC in the 90s, and those games came to PS1. But I really became familiar with them upon the release of a PS2 launch game called Summoner. I don't know if you guys know that game or not. It was a very divisive role-playing game, and it wasn't very good, but it was kind of like PS2's launch library had quite a few games in it, like 25 or something, but there was really only a few that were notable, and Summoner was kind of one of them. And then they reemerged again after that. Summoner got a sequel in 2004, I want to say, and I never played it. But then another game that I became familiar with them came out when I was in 11th grade, and I remember it very well, was Red Faction. And that was one of the first PlayStation shooters that I really, really got into, especially on the PS2. Medal of Honor, of course, was on the PS1. And then they ended up launching Saints Row in 2006, and Saints Row, the Xbox 360 third-party exclusive. We're not allowed to do that anymore. The original Saints Row, I don't think, ever came to PS3. But they got into that series, and that series continued. So they've been around for a long period of time, but their last few games have been questionable at best. They've also had a lot of canceled games over the years. But Saints Row 4 came out in 2013. And then they did that Gat Out of Hell game in 2015. That was really not them. That was High Voltage, I think, really did that game. And then the probably ill-timed and ill-conceived Agents of Mayhem in 2017. And then finally, the Saints Row reboot that came out last year. So RIP Volition. The other thing I wanted to say that was sad about it was that they're in Illinois. And that's not a vibrant place for game development. And those people are not going to probably find new jobs unless you want to work at or can get a job at like Iron Galaxy or some things that are in that area. It just kind of sucks for them because there's just not a lot going on there. So there have probably been people there for a really long time that have no idea what to do. It'd be very similar to losing your job at Bend or at Avalanche in Utah or something where you just don't have that many options. So I'm wishing all of them the very best. It seems a little extreme to me. Saints Row still sold fairly well, and Volition is probably one of the more talented teams that they have. So I don't think this bodes well for a lot of their team. Chris, do you have anything you want to say here?
Yeah, no, I mean it's bad news kind of all around. I mean it's a 30-year long strong studio. That's nothing to scoff at. Obviously, Volition's made a lot of a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff that I like, actually. Like, I remember specifically, I remember really enjoying Saints Row 3 when I was young. I don't know how much it holds up, but, and I remember 4 had like a prototype thing going on where like that was a superhero one, right? Where like you had like superpowers. That was fun too. Like, and it's I mean, like you said, it's probably a lot of people going to relocate if they, I mean, assuming they even can, because 30 years is a pretty long period of time for like one big studio in Illinois to suddenly like vanish somewhat overnight is that's a big deal. So, I mean,
yeah, it's sad.
I hope everybody lands on their feet, and
I'm looking at their list of studios, expansive, over 100 long, as we know.
Jesus Christ.
And it's 131 actually right now. I don't know if that accounts for the closure today. But when you look at this list of games, it's like studios, it's like, man, there's not that many that are bigger than Volition, or more storied than Volition. I would think valuable studios right now, from my perspective, would be something like Gunfire Games. Obviously they own, and that would be a big one. Dam Buster with Dead Island 2 probably has quite a bit of value to them. Flying Wild Hog is in here. Warhorse is probably pretty valuable to them. They obviously own a bunch of things under Saber Interactive that are going to be valuable. And Gearbox. Now, Volition was in the Gearbox family, and we're going to talk a little bit about Gearbox later, but I don't know. It just seems, and obviously Crystal Dynamics and others, but it just seems like that's bad news, dude. If Volition couldn't survive, it could be that maybe they're going to shut half these teams down or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is obviously anytime something like this, it's unfortunate. I feel, terrible for the people, particularly like you said, in this situation where there's not a lot of other developers to go to if you don't want to uproot your life and move somewhere else. So I think that I wonder if there's also partially, like, I feel bad for the situation with the recent Saints Row game, because I think that the way that their leadership handled, at least, like, hey, we're rebooting it, and if you don't like the new direction, do you remember like those tweets where they were kind of like, so this is what the game is, deal with it?
Yeah.
And so I feel bad because it seems like the direction that this game went clearly didn't resonate with people. It still sold well, but I wonder if that hadn't happened, if it would have sold better. So obviously it's not just on the fault of the most recent Saints Row. Surely there's some Embracer pressure as well, because when it came out, it was really buggy as well. Aside from, if you don't like the direction it went in the reboot, it was also just a really buggy game. So it sounded like they could have used more time to cook. And also it just sounds like Embracer had really potentially unrealistically high expectations. So it seems like just kind of a whole mashup of poor leadership decisions. And like I said, not just from them, but also from Embracer. So it just sucks for everyone in the fold that if you're just a humble animator or something like that, these decisions obviously affect not only you, but your entire family. So it is definitely unfortunate. Hopefully everyone there finds some a new place, or who knows, maybe we'll see some teams rise up from the ashes of this. That's always
that'll be cool. That's an option.
A good outcome.
Yeah.
If
there's definitely going to be some high caliber talent that's going to get scooped up out of there too, no doubt. And people can work remote. Yeah, there's a lot of different options, as you noted. And so I think, I don't know, RIP to Volition. It is strange. They are an old team, and so it's sad to see that happen. And the IP that they made was significant. It's sad that Embracer didn't, and maybe the studio itself didn't have the vision to see what Saints Row could have been, as you noted. And Saints Row could have really filled a vacuum that Grand Theft Auto left behind, I think, in some way. Not in that Grand Theft Auto is not this dominant meteor strike type release. It is, but they're 10 years apart. So you have time to pop in and do something meaningful in that space instead of what they did. But I'm going to play the new one. It's going to be on PS Plus. We're going to talk about it later on. The timing is perfect, in my opinion, but I'll leave it for then. Let's get into this next news item here. And Dustin, I wanted to get your take on this. Suikoden I and II remaster from Konami, announced, I think last year, if not earlier this year, was supposed to come out later this fall and has been delayed. They released a typically Konami style English language release that said, notice regarding release schedule for Suikoden I and II HD remaster, Gate Ruin, and Done in or Dune and Unification Wars. We would like to thank Suikoden fans everywhere for your ongoing passion and support for the Suikoden series. Regarding the planned release of Suikoden I and II HD Remaster, we have reached the conclusion that despite the very best efforts of our dedicated development staff to release the remasters in 2023, additional time is needed to ensure the quality, performance, and gameplay experience our users deserve. So no date put on them for next year, but not a huge deal. Suikoden, of course, came to PS1 in the States in 96, and its sequel came out later in 99, and it continued through Suikoden 5 on PS2, which came out in 2006. So it's been a while. Konami kind of revving up again. Chris, I'll skip you on this one, but Dustin, I'm curious if you how you feel about this, especially because you just recently played them, so you're probably in no rush to
re-experience. I played all of one.
All of one, okay.
Yeah, I didn't get to finish. I got sidetracked from 2. I'd love to get back to it, but just there's so much other stuff going on right now. But I'm of two minds of this. The first one, and overall, the serious side, is that this is totally fine. Let it cook. There's plenty of other things going on. It's never going to be like, oh, I have nothing to play now because Suikoden remasters are now. Well, I'll be fine, and many of us other JRPG fans will be totally fine. The only negative is I had this on my Metacritic draft, and I am in the danger zone of potentially, Chris, you could potentially win this with most of your games being in like the 60 or 70 range.
Oh, man.
Simply because Colin and I have had too many games delayed out of the year.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I saw that it was tweeted out as like an August update here.
Yeah.
So for the Sacred Symbols Fantasy Draft, Dustin's in first place right now with an average of 85. Chris is in second place with an average of 79, and I'm in third place with an average of 66. And the 66 comes mostly from 3 places. First of all, so we pick 12 games, as everyone knows, and you take the top 10. And this is to allow for delays. But I've now had 3 delays, which means I'm now counting as 0 in my overall equation. And Crime Boss Rocket City, which was a pick of mine, was 41, and I'm forced to take that because of the delays. So I have to eat that up, which is an unfortunate thing. I still have Avatar and Lives of P left, and my top choice was Diablo 4, but I'm out of the race. I think it is going to be between you two. Chris, you have like I said, a 79. Lots of so you have a lot of options here still because System Shock Remake hasn't come out yet. Silk Song hasn't come out yet, and that will come out this year. I don't know if System Shock will be ported over yet, but you might be able to just drop that out as a 0. And then Spider-Man 2, which will be a big one, no doubt. And your top game is Street Fighter 6 right now, and your lowest game is Crash Team Rumble at 67. And then Dustin, you are having a great year, although you have 2 delays, so you can't afford anything else. I don't think Stellar Blade's coming this year, so I think you're going to have to eat that 0, which is going to be unfortunate for your average. And you still have Mina the Hollower, which will come out in December, and Like a Dragon Gaiden, which comes out November 9th.
Will Mina the Hollower come out in December?
Well, I hope so. I mean, that would be nice. That's the plan. They're on Kickstarter, so my feel is, God, doesn't Yacht Club feel like they need to release a fucking game at some point?
Yeah,
it's been a decade.
The thing that's confused.
Yep. And by the way, just to wrap it up, your top game is Resident Evil 4 Remake at 93. Go ahead.
93, yeah.
Well, because did System Shock Remake not come out?
It came to PC, but not console yet. We don't count the PC release.
Oh, damn it! That's right.
Yeah.
But you'll be fine. You'll be able to drop that out, and you'll drop that out and then drop the 67. See, this puts you in a good shape to win.
Yeah. Chris, I would say you're the favorite, even though you are in second place. I think you probably are most likely to win at this point, just because Stellar Blade, if it's not at Tokyo Game Show, then it's out. It's not happening.
When are they going to release it? I mean, that's my whole thing. When are they going to release that? If like November, I guess, would be the only time. But Helldivers has to fit in here somewhere. Right?
Could be December. I don't know. So people aren't afraid of December releases.
I'd love for Stellar Blade to come out. I want to play it. It looks awesome. But yeah. But here's the thing, Dustin, and I think is really big, is that no matter what happens, unless something catastrophic happened with Silk Song, Chris will absorb no 0s. Like he can't possibly absorb any 0s. So he's in great shape right now. You know.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. Dude. Let's pray.
The stakes couldn't be any lower, so I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but we should make some stakes. Or did we have any stakes this year? I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
All right. Big piece of news here. I thought this was a great thing. Sea of Stars has already surpassed 100,000 copies sold. It did it in one day. Congratulations to Sabotage Studios, the new Japanese style role-playing game, 16/32-bit era inspired, Chrono Trigger-ish in some way. I went right after midnight. I was playing in Immortals of Avium. More on that in a little while. And I'm like, oh, the game's out. I went and bought it, downloaded it. And I'm really pleased to see this number for two reasons. Number one is it bodes really well for independent role-playing games. And I don't think that our game will do as well as this, but we're releasing a Japanese-style role-playing game probably next year. And that bodes well that there'll be maybe some interest in it, which is cool. And I think this number is exceptional because they put their game on Game Pass and they put their game on PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. So there were lots of different ways to not buy it. And yet people still opted in. This is great news. This is great optically. This shows that people have no problem buying high quality games. I think it's very appropriately priced. I think it was $34.99. It's supposed to be excellent. I totally believe it. I'm just trying to clear my plate and I will get to it. Because I'll save it for when we get to what we're playing. I'm definitely playing this game, and I'm really looking forward to it. Dustin, I assume you're going to get into Sea of Stars as well.
Yes. As far as congrats on 100K. Not bad. I'm willing to bet that maybe 90%, maybe not 90, but a huge amount of them are Switch sales. Just because Nintendo specifically put this game in their Direct, they've been kind of pushing it. And that's actually where I'll be playing it because I want to have something to play for my long flight to and from Japan.
Oh yeah, that's a good one to keep for that. Yeah.
So I'm
you
just
got to play it on that stinky Switch, but it'll be
Switch
something
OLED.
For you to...
It's gonna look real crispy on the OLED. So yeah, I can't wait to play it. Everything I've heard. I mean, this game. What was it? The scores on OpenCritic were like 80. So it's at an 89 right now. Initially, it was over 90, but whatever. That doesn't matter to me. But to see that overall that the consensus on this was so strong, it looks amazing. I know people that played the demo said it was also awesome. So I can't wait. It's put a little silver lining around that ridiculously long plane ride.
Yeah, man, that's perfect to have for that. I'm trying to remember what I even tried to play. I think one of my trips to Japan, I played The Walking Dead season 1 or tried to on Vita.
Which
I already played on PS3, so I don't know.
Frame rate.
Oh yeah, it was no good. I don't think I even got through it. I'd have to look at my trophies to see. We have a few questions about Sea of Stars that we can get into here. John Stejskal, is that how you think you would say that? STEJ? I don't know, man. We got to get some Stejskal. There you go. It's a lot of consonants. Says, hey, CDC, this last week we saw the release of Sea of Stars on both Game Pass and PS Plus. There's been a fair amount of hype around this, and with reviews indicate that this game delivers on its goal of being a well-crafted homage to SNES JRPGs. With the review scores and strong word of mouth, did the publisher fumble the bag on this release? Is it possible that they underestimated this title's ability to sell individual copies, or is the market for titles like this so niche that the release of subscription services was their best path forward? Can you help me understand the economics of this release strategy? I think when a game goes to Game Pass, it's to hedge its bets. I mean, that's period. That's why you go to Game Pass, is you want to hedge. And so you sign up for this idea that you will cut off the high end, project like the high end trajectory for removing the low end risk, right? And I think that it's smart. And I've said this before, even in my criticisms of Game Pass, I'm a small studio and I think all small one game at a time we have to survive for the next game studios. Yeah, take the money, man. And what's interesting about their situation is that probably mitigated the risk and paid for the game. And now everything is, or most of the game, and then everything's going to be the icing on the cake. But for me, I think that they are in a unique position, and this is what you touched on, Dustin, where they can have the best of all the worlds. The game is on PC, where people are going to buy it on Steam, Switch, where people have to buy it, and Nintendo had promoted it. So they played everyone. I don't know exactly how it worked out that way because that's usually not allowed. They must have a lot of respect and people like the game and all of that, but they somehow got Nintendo to showcase their game. They somehow got it on Game Pass, and then they somehow got it at the same time on PS Plus Extra and Premium. And they're probably happy as pigs in shit right now about the way the game's selling. Plus 100,000 copies sold at $34.99. 70% of that times 100,000 plus what they got from Game Pass plus what they got from PS Plus. I think they're in great shape right now. What did you think of this strategy, Chris? I'm sorry, Dustin, I wanted to go to you first on this.
Yeah, well, like you said, they managed to play everybody. And I think that it's a good thing, too, just because there's so many big releases right now. We're just on the edge of Starfield, and we have Baldur's Gate, and then even just in a few weeks, well, not a few weeks, but, further ahead, we have still a lot of releases. So there wasn't really a good time to fit this in. And a subscription is great for a lot of people to just be able to maybe they weren't going to check it out immediately, but now they're going to dive in and then they end up really liking it. And then, of course, like you said, PC and Switch, then that's, well, primarily Switch is where a lot of the marketing was. And that's where they get the full fat, well, outside of Nintendo's take, the money from that. So they, I'm sure, are popping champagne the last 2 days for sure.
Shout out to them. There's an interesting article about it was on gamesindustry.biz as well, about just the declining fortunes of indies with subscription models, how the checks are just lessening. Obviously, costs are going up. We're going to talk about that with PS Plus in a little while. It's becoming fairly dire. I don't know that I would expect to see this level of playing all sides moving forward with very many games. I think that they really struck a masterful chord and somehow just extracted maximum value from everyone. So good for them. Excited for them. I did want to take this before we move out. Actually, I did want to ask you, Chris, are you interested in this game at all, Sea of Stars?
It's a game that I feel like I would appreciate more than I would like to play. It's very clear like this, because this is a JRPG, right? Is the general, it's turn-based. It's just, these just don't work for me. I love the way it looks. I love the aesthetic of it. I think it's very beautiful. I have it installed on my Series X just in case. But there was no way I was going to get into it now on the eve of Starfield. It's more for like, I'm leaving this for later if I ever decide to try it. I think I will try it, but I don't know. The likelihood of me sticking with it is low based on how many JRPGs that I've actually really stuck with. But I think it's gorgeous. I'm happy that it's doing well and that the consensus is really strong and that they seem to be in a really good place, having played the hand in the way that they did. It's a good story all around. So I'm glad.
Me too. Hashim Barakat wrote in. I'll take this quick. He says, "Good day, Sacred Amigos. With the release of Sea of Stars, I was wondering if you got a chance to read the interview with its creative director on PlayStationTrophies.org. It's a great insight on their philosophy of trophies and how to implement them. I liked how they are so considerate about not including surprise missables and giving you in-game tracking features. With LSM working on a JRPG, is there anything in the article that you hope to implement or things that you don't agree with? And what do the non-trophy and achievement what do the non-trophy and achievement collectors, Dustin and Chris, think about the team's process? Thanks for all the amazing content, and I hope you have a wonderful week." I'll spare you guys if you don't want to get into this, but I did read the interview because I'm in the only place I'm really active. You could find me posting occasionally on PSN profiles. It's pretty much the only place on the internet I post anymore. And I don't even really post there very much. I usually just read, but once in a while I'll post something usually like a thank you for someone giving information that was needed. But there's this cool interview at PlayStationTrophies.org, as Hashim noted. And what I liked about this with the creative director was it was all about the trophies in Sea of Stars, and specifically how they approach them from a fairness and interest point of view, like their philosophies, but also, and this is what I thought was really cool about it, the creative director not caring about trophies and achievements, knowing that people care about trophies and achievements and trying to do it from that particular angle. He's like, I don't give a shit about this stuff, but I know how important it is to certain people. And so he wanted to make that a satisfying and satiating way to play the game. And I thought it was very, very thoughtful. And it's a lot cooler than a lot of the way a lot of teams deal with their trophies and achievements in a very backwards way and a very stupid way in some way. And so I wanted to show appreciation for that as well. I'm really looking forward to getting into the game. I just have a couple more things that I need to play, and we'll get through that in a moment. Two more pieces of news. This was going to be the end of the beginning part of the show until this morning, when there were two pieces of news that I wanted to get into really quick. The first is that, and this was rumored through leaks, but there's a Borderlands Collection coming out. Borderlands Collection Pandora's Box. It's coming to both PS4 and PS5 as well as other consoles. And here's what you get. And it's pretty big. You get the following games and all the DLC associated with each of the games: Borderlands, Borderlands 2, Borderlands the pre-sequel, Tales from the Borderlands, Borderlands 3, and new Tales from the Borderlands. This launches September 1st, and it's going to cost $150. However, when it comes out, it will only be a time discount of getting all of that for $60. Now, I'll tell you right now, who owns Borderlands? Embracer Group. Who needs to raise money? Embracer Group. I imagine that cutting the price down and having that massive initial discount is part of their need However, this is an important point, and this is what I thought was cool. Because I own most of this shit. So what about me if I wanted to clean up? It says here on Gamatsu, and they have the details from their press release if you're on PlayStation, quote, if you already own a digital or physical copy of Borderlands Game of the Year Edition or Borderlands The Handsome Collection for PlayStation 4, or a digital copy or a physical copy of Borderlands 3 on PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4, and want to complete your collection, you can access a special $30 upgrade offer on Borderlands Collection Pandora's Box by launching one of these titles and following the in-game instructions, end quote. It's a pretty awesome deal. So what they're basically saying is if you own only one of those games, you can get the whole rest of it for $30. That's awesome. So shout out to that. I thought that's pretty cool. Either of you interested in this? I love Borderlands, but I haven't played it in a while. I don't know that there's anything really for me right now. I'd like to play through them again at some point, but that's a big take, you know. I
have a question. I'm trying to remember. Is there PS5 versions of Borderlands 1 and 2, or are you just getting, are these like we're putting together all of the different PS4 and PS5 whatever versions? You know what I mean? Like just a bundle.
Yeah, I think it's probably just the PS4 versions. Borderlands 3 is on PlayStation 5, but not any of the and the new Tales would be on PlayStation 5, but none of the others, I don't think.
Yeah.
Could you argue also that this is not a complete collection because it doesn't have Tiny Tina's Wonderland?
Yeah, I suppose that's interesting. Yeah, I wonder why they wouldn't include that actually. Yeah. That would have been a little bit of a value add.
Right.
That game kind of just, I beat that game. I don't even remember one thing about it, to be honest.
Damn. That's great.
Strong recommendation. I don't remember anything.
Man, it's fun, man, to look at Borderlands 2009, Borderlands 2, 2012, pre-sequel 2014. I remember that because it came to PS3 only. Remember? The year after PS4 came out, and that was really annoying to a lot of people. And then, Borderlands 3, 2019, right before I moved to Virginia. I remember that. So it's been a while. Yeah, why didn't they include Tiny Tina's Wonderlands? That is strange.
How old is
September
that?
1st, if you're interested in that, Chris.
How old is Tiny Tina's Wonderland? Is that it's just a
year
old,
old,
right?
Yeah, but the same as another game that's being included in the
that's true. Yeah. I don't know. That is bizarre. Well, I think it's a great deal. I don't know if it's necessarily all that interesting to me because I own pretty much all of the Borderlands games that I would like to play from this collection. Like I'm not really interested in the pre-sequel even slightly, and new Tales from the Borderlands and new Tales from the Borderlands don't intrigue me either. So like I'm gonna leave this alone. But that is a really good, like that $30 upgrade is super consumer friendly and really, really cool. And they should absolutely be applauded for that because that's pretty dope.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it just to get everything, just to make sure I have everything, because I don't think I'm missing some of the DLC and all of the rest. And then if I want to play in the future, I'll be glad that I did that. But so shout out to them. And then final thing, if we move over to Ubisoft, Eurogamer discovered that there's an ESRB rating for Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition, which will come to PS4 and PS5. Unknown otherwise what they might be planning. Some description of what we already know about the game. Of course, Beyond Good and Evil 2 came out in 2003, and therefore it would make sense that they would want to get out in 2023. So I'd imagine this is somewhat of an imminent thing. I played it on Xbox back in the day, but it was on PlayStation 2 as well. And so any interest in this? I'm so sick of hearing about this game. I played it back in the day. I said this recently. I think it's not that good. I mean, it's good, but why do we have to keep hearing about Beyond Good and Evil over and over and over and over and over and over and over again as they try to get the second game out and all the rest? It's just, I don't know, man. It's not worth the effort.
I was a lot more interested in it when Beyond Good and Evil 2 was revealed out of nowhere. I think a decade after, and that was like kind of interesting. It's like, ooh, interesting, cool, and then it just never showed up again and never happened. And now I just kind of don't care. It is cool. It is cool. It is the way that they handled Beyond Good and Evil, as far as like waiting that long, or just like waiting that long to do a sequel in general, is a level of restraint that I wish most IP would actually like kind of hold themselves towards. I think that's really cool to have something that's like really that's to have a game that's interesting and kind of good, and then just wait like a decade and then really like put something else out in that same universe and really flesh it out. I think that's a great idea, and then they just never did it. So like I don't know. I appreciate the attempt, but what am I supposed to get out of Beyond Good and Evil? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Ubisoft has some weird connection to this thing where they just won't let it go.
Yeah.
And
I just the Singapore government is involved.
What's funny about it, dude, is that when Beyond Good and Evil 2 inevitably comes out, it'll probably be very good, but it won't sell very well, and it will never have been worth doing this at all. Because people, it's clear. I mean, I'm talking about one of these games in a minute where good single player games come out and they come and go and people don't care. You have to really strike it right with the perfect thing. And I just don't know.
I think it would have been fine if they just didn't show their hand so early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it would have been really cool to find out, like, hey, Beyond Good and Evil 2 is coming out in 4 months. Like a Fallout 4 type deal where it's like, oh, sick. That's so out of nowhere and so interesting and so surprising. But now they have this weird buildup where, like, I don't want to say Half-Life 3 because it's not even remotely close to the same thing. But there is somewhat of a, dude, this game's been in development for at least 6 years minimum. And we just have heard nothing about it. That's the expectations there inherently are going to be high just because of that. So they've really screwed themselves, because even if this game is, I mean, like you said, even if the game is good, is it going to be worth a 6-year wait? Probably not.
It's a lot more than 6 years.
How long is it?
Well, the original tease, there's a screenshot from May 2008.
That is fucking insane.
Yeah, I thought the math was wrong too, but I thought maybe I was wrong about something. Yeah,
it now holds the record of the longest game development.
Really?
It took it from Duke Nukem Forever.
Wait, Beyond?
Oh, that's right. We went over that on the show, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beyond Good and Evil 2 reveal trailer. When was this? Oh, okay, so it was the reveal. Okay. So I'm thinking of 2017 when they revealed it, I guess.
Right.
But you're right. There was a 2008 announcement trailer. I remember that 2008 announcement trailer being so much more recent than it was. That is crazy. I thought that was at least like 2014, but that's like so off.
That was probably the third time they showed it.
Yeah. Holy hell, man. Yeah. I don't know. It's just too long, man. Too long.
All right. Let's get into what we're playing. Chris, let's stick with you and get you going first. Here it says you're playing Destiny 2 Season of the Witch.
Yeah, Season of the Witch. Yeah, I'm playing Destiny 2 again. I looked. There were so many games that I wanted to jump into. Like, I looked at Armored Core 6 for sure. I looked at even Sea of Stars. I thought about, like, maybe I'll jump into Sea of Stars, but I knew that both of those games would be too demanding for the short period of time I had before Starfield came out. And I knew that Starfield was going to be like, I'm going to play that for at least a week straight. So I wanted to play the
early access Starfield.
I think so. I think it'll probably be worth it. I think I'll like it. I think I'll stream it is what I'll do. So I'll probably stream it tonight and see where that takes me. But the only game that I could think to really play that I could sink enough of my teeth into without getting overwhelmed, because I know it so well, was Destiny. And fortunately, they just came out with a new season and it's super good, which is nice because Lightfall was a bit of a weird one. And the last season was not particularly good. There's some cool tarot. There's like tarot card aesthetics in this. It's very witchy, very hive oriented. And the seasonal stuff is really cool. Like, it's a really satisfying combat arena. It doesn't feel as FOMO as like a lot of other, like it does feel like you could just do a thing and then just stop playing and it doesn't demand much of you. There's a lot of story. There's a great cutscene that just came out. They're handling the seasonal stuff really, really well with Destiny, for as much as the Lightfall campaign was just really horrifically written. Everything else has been really solid and it's nice. It's a nice game that I feel like I'm going to be able to jump into and out of in the middle of Starfield, and it won't be too demanding. So yeah, but I don't really have that much to say about it. Obviously, I'm going to abandon it immediately tonight when Starfield launches. But I figured I'd check in because Destiny is a game I've been playing for a very, very long time, and it's nice to see that it's still super solid, even though it is one of those games where people still ask me, "Hey, how should I get into Destiny?" And I tell them it's too late. You've missed the boat. I'm sorry. Like it's over.
It's just far too late for you.
This is for the fans now. And I don't know. You had a lot of time, in fairness.
But since you brought up Starfield, where are you guys on this? Are you both gonna? So you're gonna play Chris Dustin? Are you gonna play Starfield?
Yes, but I'm not. The early access thing is just that I could start it now. I don't really want to spend the extra money on early access. But then the other problem is comes out September 6th. So that's next Wednesday. And then shortly after that, I'm leaving for Japan. So I just think that I just got to hold it until practically mid-September in order to really give it a fair shake. So, and the other thing is I'm still really, really loving Baldur's Gate. And I can have two games running at once, like Armored Core and Baldur's Gate, but adding a third giant RPG into that, risky. No. So I am very excited to play it. It just won't be anytime soon.
That's the main reason I stopped playing Baldur's Gate was because I knew it's like, first of all, I'm not loving this as much as everybody else is, and I know for a fact when Starfield comes out, it's impossible for me to do both of these at the same time. It's just like not feasible. But yeah. No.
Yeah, I am a little. The reviews are a little worse than I thought they were going to be for Starfield. I thought it was 90. I know that was your prediction too, Dustin. And they're at 87 now, I think, and it's certainly not going to go up. I don't think so.
My prediction was pretty on point. Yeah, I do have to say.
Yeah,
like because we had like a little text thread last night about like what our predictions were going to be, and I guess 88, which is one higher than it is right now. It's 87, I think. But it'll be interesting to see how it shakes up.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that's going to be occupying a lot of people. I'll be very curious to see how it does, especially on PC, where I think it will sell a lot of copies as opposed to Xbox, where we're going to have to hear stats like people visited 3 billion planets. It's like, all right, but players took 5 trillion steps. Like, oh my God.
Not necessarily though, Colin, because you can get it via Game Pass for PC.
Oh,
oh, that is true.
I'm going to get it on Steam just because I used to have Game Pass for PC, but I want to see if it runs on Deck. It's probably going to be pretty stinky on Steam Deck, but I want to try it. So,
all right, Dustin, let's stick with you. Stephen Mulvey wrote in and said, "Yo, CDC, I'm curious how you guys feel about Armored Core 6. I've been playing since the release date, and I feel the missions are a bit unbalanced. One might be super easy, and another seems crazy hard. Same with the enemies. What are your thoughts and feelings so far? By the way, you guys rock. Love y'all. Thank you, Stephen, for writing in. Dusty, you're playing your little Armored Core 6, your weeb mech game.
That's right.
Talk to us about it.
Yeah. So I can agree with what Stephen is saying, that I do think that the missions are a little bit unbalanced, but it doesn't really bother me. So Armored Core 6, here's my main feelings about it, and I'm probably almost towards the end of chapter 3, is one of the things I respect so much about From Software, and I've gone over this before to a certain extent, but the Armored Core aspect kind of adds to it, in that this is, I think, primarily the Sekiro team. I think it's also the director of Sekiro or the gameplay designer, something like that. This is a very, very different game from Sekiro, and it's not like Souls games at all. In fact, it is very much, to my understanding, even though I haven't played those older Armored Core games, it's very much a sequel to those games. It's not like they did a Souls mech game, right? With that being said, though, I find Sekiro and Armored Core to be almost like a yin and yang of each other, in that Sekiro says, hey, you have one sword, you have a few different arms that you can change that have different abilities, but you can't level up. If you want to succeed in this game, you must play it the way that we intend for you to play it. And if you don't, you're not going to have a good time. There's one way to play this game, and we promise you, if you do that, it'll be fun. And I really respect that, because at first I tried to play Sekiro wrong and I didn't have a good time, but eventually it clicked in my brain. So coming into Armored Core, it's the opposite, in that this game is all about customization. So you can customize the gun you have on each arm. You have 2 shoulder guns as well, or cannons, whatever you want to put on there. You can change the arm piece, the core piece, your legs. So you can have like a normal 2-legged
mechs. Are so cool, man. Aren't they the coolest? I mean, how cool are mechs? Just the coolest.
It gets cooler because you can have a 4-legged mech that glides around. You can have tank treads, so you can carry the biggest weapons. There is so much customization. You can configure Like you got to have different generators. If you have all these different like energy weapons, or you want to be able to boost more, you got to put a bigger generator in your mech. It's very, I don't want to say very, very complex, because it is kind of like, here's these 12 options that you can change out, but you can look at the stat screen and it can be a bit overwhelming. So it's the opposite in that it's all about the customization, but here's where it shares the same design in that this game demands you to change your mech regularly. And that's why I found interesting when I started the game and I was tweeting a bit about it. People said, "Oh, Dustin, what's your build?" I'm like, no. You shouldn't, in my opinion, and based on other people talking about Armored Core games, you really shouldn't have a build. You should be changing it all the time. And that was one of the interesting things about this release right now is that a lot of people are getting stuck at the end of the first chapter, the first big boss. And I get it. He's not easy. In fact, I struggled for a little bit until I realized like, oh, I'm just kind of using the mech that I liked for the missions before this, but I didn't build my mech to fight this boss. And so once I figured out like, okay, he does these types of attacks, so I need to be able to dodge that. And he's got this kind of energy shield, so I need to have this weapon on my left arm in order to deplete the shield. And then this kind of boost, it became, I don't want to say trivial, but I think I beat in like 3 tries after I changed my mech around. So I find that really interesting. Like I said, this yin and yang, and that they're very, very opposite in terms of customization, but they both demand you to play a very specific way. So I'm having a blast. Just change around my mech. I have the Evangelion colors on my mech, so it looks ridiculous in this in this world. It's all like gray and like steel. I have this bright purple mech, which has been really fun. And I just love the big thing for me in this game is the movement feels really cool. So like you can just walk and you'll be kind of slow, or you can glide around and then you boost around. And you can like dodge in air and stuff like that. It's been very, very enjoyable. And I gotta say, one last big note is that this game has sold the DualSense Edge for me. I don't know how I would play it without the DualSense Edge. So I guess you could say it's a bit of a handicap if you have that. But you are there. This game is like sensory overload. You're hearing like all kinds of beeps and stuff when you're gonna get hit by a missile, when your missile's reloaded and stuff like that. But I have mine mapped where the right back button is my jump and my left one is a dodge. So I'm like up in the air. So I'm holding the one and then I'm dodging around as I'm tracking a guy with my right stick and also firing all my different missiles and stuff. So it is a bit crazy at times in terms of all the things going on in its gameplay. But I'm having a fantastic time. I was worried that I was going to get filtered by this game. It was going to be too hard. Just coming from a Souls player, and it's very different. But like I said, once you understand that core gameplay concept, I found after that, I don't want to say the game's easy. It's not easy, but I really enjoyed the process for the following bosses to figure out what kind of mech I needed for the job. And I guess, that's probably the whole point of it. So don't just...
I was going to say, we have this letter from Kill Win Die, who I think agrees with you. He says, so Armored Core came out and I absolutely hate and love it. The tutorial boss alone almost made me delete the game. But after many deaths, I did eventually defeat the boss and move on, only to get to the next major roadblock boss that once again made me want to delete the game. The cycle repeated until I decided to retry the tutorial mission, wanting some sweet payback using my souped up creation, only to find you have to use the default AC in that mission. I do it anyway. I managed to easily kill the boss, barely taking any damage. And then a thought occurred to me. This game forces you to get better without you ever really realizing it. So, it's cool. It's not for me. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, I interrupted you. Sorry.
Yeah, it really is surprising. Like you said, going back, doing those older missions and then being like, oh man, I'm totally kitted out. The one other thing I said online about this that I think is worth explaining is that it's surprisingly gracious for a FromSoft game and its checkpoints in that you'll play through the mission, which is usually pretty short. Like, for a big boss mission, the beginning part is about maybe 5 minutes or less, and then you get to the boss. If you die during the boss, you can change your mech in that, it'll say you die, you can restart from the checkpoint, but you have the option to change your mech, right? But you cannot purchase new parts from that restart screen. So a few different times I've gone and fought a boss and I'm like, ah, shit, I don't have what I need. So I'll just keep changing around the parts I have, hoping that I can do it, even though I know that I don't have the right tools to do the job. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm too lazy. I don't want to go back and have to repeat the first 3 minutes of the mission. So I'm just going to continue to struggle to see if I can, like, force it to work. And then eventually I'm like, okay, fuck it. I'm going to go get exactly what I need. And then I'll beat it in 1 or 2 tries. Just like total moronic ape brain of thinking, no, I don't want to have to redo that 3 minutes. Instead, I'll struggle for 45 minutes trying to use what I have. So that's a me problem, but that just goes to show how important the building aspect is.
Nick Thornton wrote in and said, hey guys, I know Dustin is playing Armored Core 6, but Colin and Chris, are either of you interested in giving it a try? If it wasn't a FromSoft game, I probably wouldn't have even given it a second look, but as a hardcore Soulsborne Sekiro, I'm trying to figure out how I might say it.
Soulsborne Kiro Ring. Whatever.
Yeah, there it is. Soulsborne Kiro Ring. Yeah, there it is. Whatever, fan. That's very good. I figured I'd pick it up. And man, does From Software never miss. This game is fucking awesome. From the intense combat to spending hours changing out components and making custom paint jobs, I'm enjoying every moment. I'm someone who doesn't give 2 shits about mechs, and still this might be my game of the year. So I can personally say I've really zero interest in this game at all. I'm not an Armored Core person. I'm just, with rare exception, I would jump into a game this deep into it if I felt like I needed to or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not into it. There's other games that I want to play, but I respect that people are digging it. Chris, where are you on Armored Core 6? Is this, you had said you had maybe perused it, but not really wanted to give it a go.
No, I mean, like, it's a franchise that I've only dabbled in really previously at like friends' houses. Like I might have put like maybe a cumulative 30 minutes into Armored Core as like a series at like friends' houses, like borrowing controllers or just like looking at like watching my friends play or whatever. I am curious about this one though, because I do think I would like it. I just want to give it time. Like, I mean, like I said earlier, it's like right now is just not a good time. I'm going to need time to really sink my teeth into a game like this, especially if there's so much time spent like building your mech and customizing. And I feel like the paint jobs by themselves is probably going to take a lot of time for me because I'm weird about that shit. Yeah. So I feel like, and I said this before, I think Armored Core might be a game that I get into either after Starfield and before Spider-Man, or just like in December when I'm trying to clean up a little bit. Because I have a feeling about this game that I would really like it, but I want to give it that time.
The movement alone, Chris, I think you would find really enjoyable. Like the gliding around and the boosting up in the air all feels awesome.
Yeah, it looks cool. Like
one last. Oh, good.
No. I'm just saying, like it looks dope, and I'm excited to get into it.
One last note about the game that I think is particularly interesting. People, listen to what I'm saying here. It's not a negative. This game is structured. The way it's structured reminds me of a PS2 game very much, in that it is very, very mission structured. There's no like hub.
Love that.
There's no, and most of the missions are pretty short too, but not in a bad way. The way they are paced feels really great, but it feels refreshing to play a game like this where it's, very highly mission. I'm not walking around to the seat, talk to the different people in my camp, as much as I like that stuff. And I'm doing that all the time in Baldur's Gate 3. It's nice that I just go in and out of a menu. And when I'm not in a menu, it's gameplay. And just purely, it's very refreshing.
Yeah, I love that. Speaks to me like a lot. So it's definitely going to be a game I'm going to get to this year. It's just whether it's just the timing of it. Like it really depends on how deeply Starfield grabs me, because I might jump into it right away. Who the fuck knows? But I definitely will get to it by the end of the year, because it does seem to have elements of a Chris game in there.
Yeah.
All right, for me, I'm playing a couple of games. Bono Clay wrote in and said, Colin, what are your final thoughts on Alan Wake? How stoked are you for Alan Wake 2? What are the odds of you hijacking Micah's Xbox to play the short but very good American Nightmare? Chris and Dustin, the game still holds up and is perfect for Steam Deck in bed. It's also the original version, so the glorious product placement of Energizer batteries and whatnot is still intact. Are you planning on getting on the Alan Wake train? So thank you for writing in, Bono. And I didn't. It's funny. I played the remastered version, so all of that stuff is removed, like the Energizer battery, the Verizon cellular stuff.
Oh yeah, what is it in the remastered version?
It's nothing. It's just whatever, just batteries and
just battery.
Yeah.
Aldi brand.
Yeah, Aldi brand batteries. So
there was there was something about the big Verizon billboard in the original Alan Wake that for whatever reason I didn't find jarring because it made it feel real in some way. Like it was weird. It was jarring to see it in a video game, but at the same time it didn't bother me as much as like, I don't know, Monster energy drinks being used to hydrate you in fucking Death Stranding.
Yeah, that shit was so annoying.
Sense.
Yeah, that shit was annoying. I'm glad they took that out eventually, right, with the PC version. So I beat Alan Wake. I have 90% of the trophies. I also beat the DLC, both DLC packs as well. And I'm going to go back and play through it again next week. So this is what I was saying earlier, is that I have a couple things to play. We're doing or actually this weekend I'll probably do it. We're doing a review discussion and spoiler cast for Alan Wake with Dagan and Hogue. And so I want to play through it again and take notes and clean things up. I'll play it on nightmare mode so I can try to beat it on that and get the platinum trophy. So that'll be cool. And that's the plan. I'll save most of my thoughts about Alan Wake for the show itself, but I think it's an exceptionally good game. And as I said last week, actually the DLC kind of, I don't want to say it sucked, but I was just like, I don't know. It had some cool design things and things that they were working with, but I didn't really quite understand why they decided to spend the time with their DLC. It's basically like they're just huge asset flips in some way, which is fine. But the core game I thought was really exceptional, and I'm very excited about Alan Wake 2. As far as American Nightmare, as I noted, I think last week, I just feel like they would have re-released it if they felt like it was important for me to experience Alan Wake 2. Noting that Alan Wake was purchased back from Microsoft by Remedy for just a few $1 million. They own it. So I would assume that I can probably get by without really playing that for the story, and I'm comfortable doing that. I did note that maybe they'll release that randomly in the lead up to the game, which I think would be kind of cool if they did that in September or something. And then maybe I'd give it a go, but I doubt it for that. So I'm excited about Alan Wake 2. I don't know anything about it. I didn't watch any trailers, but now I have the context necessary, because there's going to be people that play Alan Wake 2 without playing Alan Wake, and you know that's going to annoy me, right? That's going to annoy me. So I'm just letting everyone know ahead of time right now.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. I thought it was, again, as I said, I'm disappointed that I let people turn me off from the gameplay, because people still bring that up and I've seen people still bring it up, and I'm like, I think the gameplay is good. I like the gameplay. I think it's fun. Using the light with one hand and the guns with the other and whatever. I think works very well. But the other game I've been spending time with, and I'm about 60 or 65% through right now, is a little game called Immortals of Avium. Bearsex69 wrote in and said, "Hey boys, have any of you given Immortals of Avium a go? After playing around 8 hours, I'm a bit shocked at the seemingly mixed reception, at least critically. The story is nothing to write home about, but surely nothing disastrous, and the moment-to-moment gameplay is a blast in my opinion. It reminds me of Doom a bit in the sense of switching your magic types to attack enemies more effectively. There's also a lot to collect and upgrade, so I think Colin specifically would really get a kick out of this one. I'd definitely recommend giving it a try when you find the time." So yeah, I bought it the day it came out. I've been looking forward to it. It comes from Ascendant Studios, which is a new team, and EA Originals is the publishing arm that brought this game out. And I think it's awesome. I wrote to you guys, I think, on the Sacred thread when I first started playing it. I was surprised by how good it is. It's great. The game, I actually think the story is kind of cool. I'm kind of getting a little lost in it, because it's what I always make fun of with these kinds of stories, where it's just a bunch of made up words. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about after a while. It's like this thing happened to this guy and this plan. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But I'm doing the best I can. But the general idea of the story is cool. It's about this thing called the Ever War. In fact, that might have been a neat name for the game, although that's probably already used by something else. And it's about a war that has been happening for so long that no one even really knows why they're fighting it anymore. And it's subsumed generations and generations of people. It's fucking cool. It's a really cool idea. And these sides that are just so deeply entrenched that they almost don't understand what's even going on. And there are these magic users and so on and so forth. And you're one of these magic users. The gameplay is a blast. I totally agree. It's a magic shooter, so that's nothing super unique. Hexen was a magic shooter. You can go all the way back to games like Catacomb. That was a magic shooter. But what's so funny about it is how blatantly a first-person shooter it is without it being like a gun-based first-person shooter without being like a gun-based first-person shooter. You have 3 types of magic. Your blue magic is kind of like your single-shot assault rifle or maybe your pistol. Your red magic is your shotgun, and your green magic is like a long-distance or like heavy machine gun sort of thing that can't really aim very well, but does a decent amount of damage with its amount of bullets in its clips. And you just switch between them with the triangle button as you go. And it's so FPS like that you even reload on each of them, which is so funny. So like you can't just use the magic endlessly. You have to reload your clips. And I wish that you could aim. You can't aim. You just play the game kind of like shooting what you can. So if it's far away, you kind of have to aim your reticle.
It's like it's hip fire.
Right, exactly. Like you can't zoom or whatever, which makes sense. That's like my only complaint about gameplay, and you get over that real quick when you realize you're not playing with a gun. That like, why would you be able to put your hand out and then zoom in? And be able to see. So I get that, but I'm bummed because Dan Excel wrote about this, and he says, "Hey Colin, how are you liking Immortals of Aveum? This game reviewed decently well, but no one seems to be talking about it or playing it. As of the time of this writing, PSN profile shows 370 game owners on PlayStation, and True Achievements shows 1,553 game owners on Xbox. These websites offer small sample sizes, but I think we can glean a game's relative success by how popular they are amongst the hardcore audience. I can't imagine EA is very happy with these sales right now. So what do you think happened here? Have a great weekend, and thanks for the great content, boys." I would go as far as to say Immortals of Aveum is bombing. Completely bombing.
Yeah.
It looks like. To the point where I would imagine, I think I saw the Steam stats where it was like a couple hundred people at the most were playing it at one time. And
not great.
So I would imagine you're in the below 100,000 sold territory at the most, I would say. And maybe that's way undershooting it. Pardon the pun. I don't think so though, because it's, as you said, this anecdotal evidence can be powerful. And I really find that disjointed from the overall quality of the game. It's very AAA. The story isn't that, like I said, I'm a little lost in the story now, but the characters are cool. The voice acting is very well done. The writing is very well done. Really interesting interactions. It feels like they recorded on a soundstage or something. Very Sony-like in some way. I'm not saying it's The Last of Us or something, but just from that interactivity. Michael Mumbauer talks a lot about that, about how bringing everyone on stage together is part of the magic that made PlayStation games work. And I don't know if they did that with EA and Ascendant, but it feels that way. And so I'm very impressed with it. The upgrade systems are really cool. They all marry to each other. So you upgrade your blue, your red, and your green magic. But to upgrade your blue magic too high, you have to start getting red or green magic, or it won't let you get further. So it kind of forces you to explore everything. And you find different equipment. You can wear rings and gauntlets that help you. You can get new guns and upgrade those guns at using different weapons and materials that you find. I'm a big fan of this game. And I'm also surprised that it almost goes too hard. We talk about games sometimes that go a little too hard in the paint. Like, it actually didn't need to even go as hard as it's going if you play it, where it's built kind of like, it's kind of like God of War in the way it's built, where it's these sections that are all connected to each other and you can kind of move through them or fast travel between them. And there are these collectibles and treasure chests to find and different combat trials. And yeah, I highly recommend Immortals of Aveum. Totally. 100% recommend it. I don't think anyone's going to really play it, but I really hope that some of you choose to do so. It's one of the best games I played this year, I think. And I can see why EA was interested in it, but I don't know if it was timing, lack of solid marketing, or just literal disinterest in the product itself, which is all possible. I even think it does a really nice job of presenting itself. It's kind of like this fusion of fantasy and high tech, and it does a really nice job of, it feels a little Final Fantasy 16-ish even in some parts in its story and presentation, not as high quality, of course. But I recommend this game, Immortals of Aveum. I don't think Ascendant is going to be long for this world if they're banking, unless they were paid up front, and they're not banking on any residuals from this game, because I just don't, for some reason, people are just not feeling it or not interested in giving it a go. And that sucks, because I think at a more just industry would have seen this for what it was, which is a game that should probably sell 1 million copies or more. And do really well. So yeah, shout out to Immortals of Avium. All right. Either of you guys interested in checking it out?
Not right now, and it's just too busy.
That's the thing, man. I feel like this is a very classic. This is an EA game, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very, very EA of them to put out a game like this in such a bad time. Like, it's just not a good time to release a game like this. Just straight up, I think either they should have held it for a while, or maybe earlier on. Like, I feel like almost like maybe like December would have been a good time for this, or just anything that isn't now, because like right now Starfield and then like Spider-Man 2 is like right there, and Baldur's Gate is still kind of subsuming a lot of people. Like, and I understand that maybe there's not a lot of overlap, and maybe they thought like, oh well, this is like a hyper specific thing. You've got, it's a first person shooter. It's not like this big RPG, but like, I mean, it's a number of things. I think it's a bad name, personally. I think the name's not great. Everwar or something would have been cool, or something of Everwar. I don't know. Honestly, I feel like anything else would have been better. Like Immortals of it reminds me. You know what it reminds me of? Sincerely, Immortals Phoenix Rising.
Yeah,
where I was like, this is a really solid. Like, I enjoyed that game actually. Like, I didn't finish it or anything, but I had a fun time with it. It was a nice like departure from like whatever Ubisoft was doing in a way that I felt like was actually cool. But like, that name tells you fuck all, and it tells you nothing. And the marketing didn't really do a great job either. Like, there were certain aspects of the game that I just feel like from a presentational standpoint were just a bit fumbled before like kind of out the gate. But I've heard pretty. I mean, I know the mixed reviews are pretty, out there, but like the people that I generally align with the most have I asked them about it, and they were like, it's pretty solid. Like, I know SkillUp described it as like a nice, like a palate cleanser, which I think was like a really nice way to.
I think you'd really like it. I think I would. The connection. I don't know who wrote in about this, calling it Doom. Yeah, BearSex69. It does feel like Doom. It does feel like Doom. There's even a hook shot in it. So yeah,
dude, I'm into it, man. Like, I want to play it. I just think like right now it's just not the time, man. It's just such a bit. This year alone is just like it's super stacked. I feel like this game would have stood a far better chance, like maybe like earlier in the year, or even like maybe like early next year or something. I don't know. I just think there's really not a lot of room for this game to shine. And there are some things that I feel like, I don't know. I saw a cutscene story wise that really didn't do a great. There's look, a trigger warning to anybody who's going to play this game. The exact line of dialogue, "He's right behind me, isn't he?" is in fact in the game. And I kind of couldn't believe that. But I'm not gonna hold that against it, because I do think it looks like it plays really well. I like magic shooters. Even oh my god, what is it with Ghostwire, with like the that kind of like spell magic stuff. Yeah. It's like I'm into that kind of combat, and I do like how arcadey it seems, and how very like unashamedly like this is just a gun. I like that. I'm probably gonna have to maybe tune out some of the story elements, but like this is probably a game that I'm feeling like maybe December, because I do want to get to it. December is gonna be like my cleanup time, because I'm not gonna be doing a lot content wise as far as like recording. So like I'm gonna try and just bum rush through a bunch of games, and that'll be one of them, I think, because I'm liking what I'm seeing gameplay wise.
All right, let's get into the news. There are only 2 news items this week, and they are interconnected. And this brings us to the drama of the week. And I'll be very interested to see what you guys think of this, because I'm all over the map in my own feelings to this. I think it's heart versus head here in some way. The real head, not the. When you know what. My dad told me once, and it really disturbed me when I was in high school. He was like, "Why don't you think with your other head?"
Oh, no, not like that.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't.
Your other head.
Like every once in a while, he would come out with something. I remember when I was home with like a girl I brought home from college, and I was like totally just, I guess I was stoned or whatever. And he's like, "Why don't you go smoke another joint, Colin?"
You're like, "Hey,
thanks, Dad. Thank you. Very cool. Number one." In a controversial move that's going over like a lead balloon in many corners of the PlayStation ecosystem, Sony is dramatically raising the price of its PlayStation Plus subscription service beginning November 6th. Making matters worse is that, according to Sony, quote, "any membership changes you make on or after September 6th such as upgrades, downgrades, or buying additional time, will update your plan reflecting the new prices, end quote. In other words, if you want to stack your PS Plus time at the old rates, you'll need to make that decision quickly. But first, some history. Sony launched its PlayStation Plus service during the PlayStation 3 era in 2010 at a cost of $50 per year. Free monthly games were always in the mix. Early offerings in that first year include Wipeout HD, Age of Zombies, Critter Crunch, Zen Pinball, Shatter, and more. And discounts, demo access, and even betas rounded things out. It wasn't until the launch of PlayStation 4 in 2013 that PS Plus was required for online play, the most major component of the entire base service over the last 10 years. At that point, an annual PS Plus account nonetheless remained at $50. In 2016, about halfway through the PS4 generation, the price went up to $60. And for 7 years or so, there it has stood until now. PlayStation Plus these days has 3 tiers, and the base tier, Essential, which is equivalent to what PS Plus was in the entirety until last year, will go from $60 a year to $80 a year. The sticker shock is greater with the mid-tier plan Extra and the high-tier plan Premium. Extra used to cost $100 a year, but will now cost $130 a year, while Premium costs $120 a year and will now cost $160 a year. Respective annual increases between the tiers of $20, $35, and $40. This information was buried in a PlayStation blog post announcing this month's new Essential games, more on that shortly, and doesn't seem to come with any additional perks. And such news comes at a frankly dire time for gaming subscription services, and perhaps mainstream entertainment subscription services full stop, and that they're failing to grow. Thus, more money will necessarily be needed from fewer subscribers. As reported in an extensive article on website gamesindustry.biz, subscription deals are waning in value. As noted by an analyst interviewed in the piece, quote, the checks coming from Sony and Microsoft are just not as big as they were, end quote. So at a time when publishers and developers are seeing their returns lessen from doing deals, and when, at least in America, Game Pass and PS Plus subscriptions remain totally flat since 2021, Sony will be asking its player base for more. Indeed, at the 2 higher tiers, PS Plus will cost more than Xbox's rival Game Pass, which, while lacking Sony's first and second party games, nonetheless offers a slew of titles on its own, important amongst them all of their own first and second party releases, new and old. We got a lot of people writing in about this. Let's go with Robbie Devers for now. He says, hello, gentlemen. I can only imagine how many questions like this exact one you'll receive this week, so I'll cut to the chase. What are your feelings on Sony's surprise announcement that the annual cost of all PlayStation Plus tiers are increasing? I could see this as a justifiable increase if the service's overall offerings provided a proportionate value, but locking online play, cloud saves, and a truly unreliable handful of free games behind an $80 paywall at the base level seems out of touch. I understand inflation is real and the dollar's value has depreciated, but this feels completely unjustified in the current climate. I'll be very interested. I'll go last. I want to see what you guys think about this. Dustin, let's go to you first.
Like the tiers of PlayStation Plus, I have tiered approach feelings about this. First of all, the extra tier, I agree. I'm okay with a price increase. I think that makes sense. We're seeing every other subscription go up. I think that $20 is too much. I think at $10, I would have said, okay, I get it. 20 though is something about that feels more egregious for what you're getting. And this is particularly at the extra tier. This is the one where a lot of people feel like they have to have it because they want to be able to play online. They want to be able to do the cloud saves. The free games are, some people really care about those. Some people don't. Sometimes the quality is all over the place with those in terms of what you're getting. It's clear that the perceived value is still there based on the collection of all the games that you get. But if they're games you don't want, then that's not value, right? So that's a lot of that's going to be in the eye of the beholder. But so yeah, 80 too much. In terms of extra and premium, I think that same thing still applies, is that they're taking the price increase too far. Extra, where I kind of am willing to concede a little bit, is that I still think that even at this price point, if you are a new PlayStation owner and you're not caring about the most recent releases and you're kind of willing to just let PlayStation curate different games to play, I still think extra would be a good value for a certain type of player. But I think that a lot of people are going to look at this and be like, I like having those extra games, but I don't know if I use it enough for, what is it, 130? Yeah, it's 130 now. That's just okay. And then the premium, this is the biggest one, the biggest fuck you, because Just Sony heard. They're like, oh, that, it's getting, they think that premium's getting a little better. So now we have the leeway to do the most egregious price increase when they really haven't done a very good job so far with even providing games that people actually want to play as far as these classics collection. As I stated in the past few weeks, they have improved to some degree, but not enough to justify this level of price increase. And here's the thing is that I'm not demanding the world. I'm okay with 3 or 4 new games a month in the classics tier. But currently what you're feeding us is fucking random ass PSP games, a remake of the Ape Escape remake when we already have the superior version of Ape Escape on PlayStation 1. What are you fucking thinking?
So weird.
It's bullshit. So yes, more than ever now, after I had lightly softened up on the premium tier, all that is totally gone. Fuck the premium tier. You are really, I think, better served in one of the 2 lower tiers and just buying piecemeal the 2 or 3 PlayStation classics that you may want to buy, because there is no fucking guarantee that they're even going to give you anything good. They're going to give you some one last distinction I want to make. Some of the random offshoot games, cool. I like having the random obscure stuff in there, but if that's all you're giving, it's just not acceptable. So overall, I think that this price increase is too egregious in its amount. I think a price increase is okay. It's especially bad for that highest tier of premium and extra. It really just depends if it's still going to be worth it to you.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there. Chris, let's get you involved.
Yeah, I mean, I feel largely similarly. Like the premium tier is fucked. Like that's that is just I can't in any reality justify that price for what the premium tier is offering. So like I would say that went from something that was like a begrudging kind of like okay to now it's just no. There's no real reason for that. Extra, I think it is like a dependent kind of thing. I still feel like that might be a bit too much too. But there's at least use cases for that entire tier. Like I do feel, for example, like Dustin mentioned, newer people in the ecosystem. I feel like you're going to get a lot of value out of that, regardless. But it still feels like too much. To me, the base tier for a subscription service or for something like PS Plus or like Xbox Live or whatever you want to call it, the yearly price, in my opinion, should reflect the price of one game. You know what I mean? I think that was kind of like the sweet spot that Xbox Live kind of landed on in the 360 generation, where it's like you get a year's worth of Xbox Live for the price of one full priced game. That was $60. It was $60 a year. And I remember thinking like that for whatever reason that made sense to me. And so for me, if they did increase the price from 60 to 70, that would have made more sense to me as opposed to this $80 jump where it's like kind of it feels like it's in this weird space of, well, I guess they need more money, but I don't know what we're getting out of this really for this exact price. It seems slightly steep, but I mean, online play and cloud saves are pretty useful. So I don't know how to feel about that exactly. I think extra tier is where I'd probably settle if I were somebody who was newer, but I think the most egregious part is the premium. That premium tier is unusable, man. That is crazy. You are way better off getting. I mean, you're better off getting piecemeal in general because that just serves you. But especially, when you hike the price and you force all your consumers to really evaluate what it is they're paying for and what it is they're getting out of it, then they're kind of forced into the position where it's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to drop my tier and just buy piecemeal. Because before it was kind of in this territory where it was still expensive, but you could almost kind of let it go. It was almost like, it's in the background. I'm probably getting value out of it. But now it's like 160. Now I got to pay attention in a way that I probably didn't have to as much before. So this is my broad feelings on it. I don't think it's a good price hike.
Well, speaking of the stuff with premium, Ryan Goldner wrote in and said, hey, all, one of the many questions on the subject, but what is going on with PS Plus and its large increase, particularly the increase to premium, which is just a slow drip feed of classic titles to the service? Do we expect anything notable in Sony's offerings moving forward, or is just in correlation to PlayStation's current market power? Thanks, boys, for the content, and good luck to your Jets with kickoff here at last. Thank you, Ryan, for writing in. So specifically about premium, I hear what you guys are saying completely. And I agree with you, Dustin, that extra is probably the best value or bang for your buck compared to what you're getting. I think that's somewhat obvious. Unless you have like real need for specific classic games that already exist in the library, because you don't really know what you're going to get moving forward. I do think that they materially have to ratchet that up, and they can afford to do that. I said that recently on Sacred Symbols Plus when I did the mailbag, that Sony has first and second party access plus tons of third party access to classic games where they could just release more and still not. I know that they're probably afraid that they need to have things coming to it always. So you can't just release everything at once. And I think people need to understand that. But I think that they need to game it a little bit better with their catalog management and figure out that there are lots and lots and lots and lots of games on these platforms that you could get 10 of them a month out probably and never really run through them. By the time you run through those, you'll start getting to PS4, right? And hopefully you would have PS3 worked out in a more palatable way as well. So I totally agree about the premium. The premium pricing is where I think the sticker shock really comes in. But there's another way of looking at it too, and I want to represent that. Josh Naylor wrote in and said, hi, fellas. PS Plus has just had a price increase announced for all three tiers, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it. As a heavy PS Plus extra user myself, I see the $35 price increase as not being that big of a deal. Sea of Stars, Ghostwire Tokyo, and Guardians of the Galaxy alone already more than justified my subscription at the $100 price for the year, and those are just a few out of the many quality games to experience with the service. The service pays for itself. So yeah, you have to acknowledge that. See, PlayStation Plus is just not for me. Generally speaking, it's just not. I appreciate, and we're going to talk about one of the games coming to PS Plus Essential soon. Every once in a while, I get one of those games pops up and I'm like, yeah, great, perfect. And I'll check that out. But I really do have it for cloud saving. I really literally just have it for cloud saving. And it's kind of sad, but it's true. Just because I like to back up my saves, of course, every time I play, but also because I move between multiple PS5s. So it just makes it easier for me. And I have no interest in moving up to extra because I like buying my games. I have no problem buying my games. And premium has never been interesting to me at all. Although I've bought probably $30 or $40 worth of classic games at this point. So maybe I should have signed up, but you don't own them if you do that either. It's important to note that, like, you don't just get them. You have to have a subscription to them. You're not owning any of this stuff. And I think that that's a key that sometimes people forget. That's certainly a key when people talk about Game Pass, about access. It's like, hey, you have access, but you don't have permanent access to anything unless you keep paying for it.
It should be noticed, though, that, and I don't know if this is true still, but I'm fairly certain there are some classic titles that are only accessible through the subscription.
Yeah, there are, I think, a handful of them.
Which is Resident Evil Director's Cut, I think, was one of them.
Yeah, things like that where they're not even available piecemeal. Like, so even if you wanted to play that, if you wanted to play certain specific classic titles, you have to subscribe to the premium tier, and there's not even really a way for you to download that independently. Just kind of shitty. But yeah, I just want to mention that.
Yeah, no, it's true that there are these little perks, like exclusive free trials and demos, beta access, all these things. The things I went back and researching for the show and found my own articles writing about PlayStation Plus, which I've always been an advocate of since the very beginning. I don't know if you guys remember, everyone hated PS Plus.
Yeah,
when it got announced, everybody. And
I remember
it wasn't until PS4 that it became really mandatory if you wanted to play online. So it was just this opt-in thing. But I was making the case from the very beginning, and I think it was a good case, that this is somewhat valuable. We used to do these articles about if you're engaged with the ecosystem in a very deep way and you buy things and all this, is actually, here's all the value you can get out of it. And this is one of the things I wrote down in my notes that I wanted to get to, is that it really, and it's what we've brought up before, it's value over time. And what do you want out of it? Like, what are you looking to get out of it? If you play PlayStation every week for, let's say, 10 hours at least, right? and you have access to extra, then, and you're not really that concerned about access to new games, I would imagine it's, as you said, Dustin, it's why I recommended PlayStation Plus Extra to Ramon when I sent him my PS4 Pro. I was like, this is perfect for you. You don't give a fuck about any of the new games. You haven't played anything on these consoles. So have at it. And that's what I'm saying about intent. $130 or $150, whatever, is nothing for that if you're getting what Ramon's about to get out of PlayStation Plus. But for someone either has deep familiarity with PlayStation, and it's almost like the longer you've been in the console space, the less valuable these things become. Because not only do you really need ready access to back catalog games, but you're a regular consumer of new games. So as things get added to it, you've already played them. I remember that was a problem with PlayStation Plus Collection on PS5, where it's like, I owned, I think, 18 of those games out of the 20 games. I'm like, I already own these. So, but that's the conundrum. It's not really for me. And so I don't want to, because they already got me hook, line, and sinker, just like they have all of us. We buy games. They don't give a fuck if we subscribe to PlayStation Plus. And in fact, I think that this pricing is so aggressive in some sense that I think Sony realizes this isn't going to be the future. I think Sony has become somewhat comfortable that this will not, or at least they're gaming it out where this will not be part of the mandatory future of engaging with gaming on PlayStation. And so we're willing to like spend or get a little bit more out of the people that are there. And as people shed, that's okay, because our data probably shows that they'll just buy games, so they almost have you captive once you have the machine itself. And that's kind of the brilliance in some sense of PlayStation Plus specifically being tied only to PS5, and that it's just this circuitous thing as opposed to Game Pass, which is available in all of these places. So you're not married to hardware, and therefore you're never really captive if they lose you to staying within that hardware ecosystem. That's like an Achilles heel in some way to Game Pass if this all doesn't work, in addition to access to first and second party games, which is just not financially feasible. And I think that's the other thing I wanted to say. Think about the quality of Extra, or think about the quality of Game Pass, or whatever, however you judge it, based on the amount of money that you're spending on it now. Then imagine your best case scenario, and then imagine how much that would cost. And you're starting to like get to numbers that simply don't make sense anymore for people to spend. I've said before that a truly imagine an ecosystem where you could get anything on PlayStation that comes to PlayStation, first, second, or third party, this magical thing, right? And you can get it through subscription day one. That's what is that? $49.99 a month? At least? Something like that. So you are getting some value that is higher than the requisite money you're spending, but you have to be able to be willing to spend it. And I think this is why I have always said that subscriptions haven't been for me, is that it puts you in this pressure position. You got to get your value. It's how I feel about having like HBO right now with because I'm watching the Jets on Hard Knocks. So it's like, what else can I watch? I got to watch something because I'm going to cancel this thing next month. Like, what can I watch? And then I don't want to be under that pressure with games.
Yeah.
And so I just never put myself in this position to begin with. I will say this, that, and this is important, at the time that the time that PlayStation Plus was priced at $50, you would need $70 today to have the equivalent requisite value. So this goes into what Chris was saying about staying equivalent with the game pricing. But I've said before that the inflationary cycle that we're going through right now, which was not foreseen really, subsumed all of the value of the increase of the $10 increase of games from $60 to $70. And I think this is Sony saying, not doing that again. Because I honestly think if you could rewind time, and I think it would have been unpopular, but I wonder what it would have really affected. I think they would have charged $80 for these games right off the bat. Like, they're going to have to do that at some point. And I think this is them just biting the bullet now and saying, all right, let's do this and then not do it again for 6 more years or whatever, as opposed to having to do it again in 3 years, which is what's going to happen with game pricing, where I just can't imagine games sticking at that price for as long as they stuck at 60. And so I think there's a whole lot to there, but people come to PlayStation for a whole litany of reasons. Never touch the first party games, never care about those, play online. I wonder if this kind of stuff is more representative. If again, everyone's mad about everything. And I get it. When I saw those price increases, my gut, I was like, what the fuck? What are you, crazy?
Yeah, it's an immediate visceral reaction.
Right. But then when you really think about it, it's like, and that's why I had to do my research. 2010, $50. 2016, $60. And PlayStation Plus is more valuable than it's certainly the game. I read you the games that came out the first year, right? Age of Zombies, Shatter, which is awesome, but they were really not doing very much. The games are of at least, this month is a bad month for them to do it, but generally speaking, of a very or a better quality. So I think they're spending more in licensing, but that's what I'm saying. Like if you want to extract this idealist value right out of PlayStation Plus and get the most value out of Game Pass, you are going to pay way more than you're paying right now. I'm telling you right now. If you really want to go down this direction, you have got to steel yourself, because it will not stop here. And I wanted to ask you guys, you have until September 6th to bank, right? So this will go live on Patreon and on free feeds in time for that, for people to know. You should definitely check. Maybe they changed that around. I went and bought one more year of Essential, because my Essential was going to run out in January. So I just bumped it to January 2025. And I'm like, should I do more? And then I'm like, in good conscience, I can't just give them money sight unseen for that long. I'll do a year and get that out of the way, so I'm not annoyed that I didn't just do it. I'll do it in January when it's $80 and be like, why the fuck did I not just do this when it was $60? But eventually I'll be so withdrawn from the reality of having paid $60. And I guess this is the sad reality of consumerism, is that I'll just be like, it's just $80. That's what it costs. But there's a lot there. Where are you, Dustin, on the head versus heart, or, kind of situation, the gut, whatever? There is a tension there. People really are dying on their crosses, I'm seeing about this. And I'm like, I don't know if it's that traumatic that we need to do this, considering the history. Like, this is what I was saying earlier about PlayStation Portal and just everything being a catastrophe. And it's just, oh my God. Again, this is a time for you to assess the value that you get out of the service. And that's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Just and if you really have a problem with it, but you like what you get now, and you like what you get now, then just bank. You have time. Just bank it. If you're that much of a believer in the old price point. Anyway, go on. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll be banking a few, just because I think my subscription is either out in September or October. So it makes sense for me. I'm going to re-up anyway, so I should just do it a few weeks in advance. But as I said, I think that the element of it for me is just the amount of the increase is what I find to be, I don't know, distasteful is the right word, but I think if it was a $70, particularly for extra, because like I said, I feel like a lot of people feel like they have to have extra because they want to be able to play online and they want the cloud saves, right? So to increase that high, that's where I feel like, ooh, that's feels a little gross to me. The extra tier, like I said, I think a lot of people will find value despite the price increase. Like our write-in, who was that here? Josh. I think there's a lot of people like Josh who, even if it's $35 more, if you're okay with playing these games slightly later, or if you're into the games that they have provided, like Sea of Stars or Stray or something like that, then yeah, you're still going to get the value from that price increase. But I think that the two egregious sides are the premium and the extra, where it's like, does it have to be that much? Do you have to go up that much? And I think I understand what you're saying about doing it all at once, but I don't know. I think it, like you said, it particularly comes off as a little sour right now when they're releasing Saints Row, which a lot of people found to be a pretty unfavorable game, a game that they weren't interested in playing at release, and now it's going to PlayStation Plus. It's like, oh, you say you're doing this in order to ensure quality, and you're giving us a pretty low reviewed game. Cool. Yeah. I think that there are things that they could have said, or things they could have at the very least promised, that could have softened the blow. If they were like, hey, we're increasing the price of premium, look forward to a few PlayStation 3 games running natively, or we're increasing the overall output of PlayStation Classics with this. Or maybe on the extra tier, they say, we're going to start including PSVR games. I guess that would only affect a small amount of people, but even something like that, someone would be like, oh, cool. I'm interested in that platform to know that I'll have a small catalog of games. That's nice. Something like that. Or even on the extra tier to say, we're going to include one additional game or one VR game or something, anything to make people feel like the price increase, at least you're getting something out of it. But right now, all they're seeing is multiple outside of extra. So we'll say the regular tier and the premium tier, the two people on those services are just seeing they're like poor quality right now in terms of this month with Saints Row and with in terms of the monthly games that they're getting from premium. So it's like, hey, we're increasing the price and we're not promising to do any better.
You would think that this would just be marketing 101, you would think, right? That in collaboration, because this announcement happened underneath these games that we're going to talk about in a little while, right? So it wasn't like a separate. You would think that we got to operate and do this during a great month. And now Sea of Stars and all that stuff, it's good. That's good. Sure. But you would think you would have like heavy hitters ready to go. Yeah. Specifically for the beat of raising the price, saying like, oh, we're raising the price. Look at these great games that are coming out this month.
Every tier should have been like this should have been the best month for them to showcase every single tier ever. If they were going to justify, because dude, man, I'm still so shocked by the premium tier. I can't believe it, because, and it's not even a matter of like, oh, they're not putting out enough. To me, it's the things that they're choosing to put out for premium tier. Like what Dustin mentioned, the Ape Escape, the redundant PSP Ape Escape. Is like, why would you do that? You have so many other options. Why would you pick a worse version of something that already exists? That's insane.
Not to mention too, I just think this is worth bringing up and repeating. Sony PR, listen to me. You have broken PS4 games on your premium tier. Your PS2 games that are the PS4 version, like Ape Escape 2, they don't work on PlayStation 5. They don't. Go ahead, try to load. If you have premium, download Ape Escape 2 and tell me how it runs on your PlayStation 5. Like, totally unacceptable, because that's part of. I know there's not a lot of those PS2 games on PS4, but being that that's part of that premium tiers, those classics, you might want to make sure they work. So,
yeah. I think that there's a lot of consternation about this for good reason. But I just think that you have to think also deeper about the way you interact with these subscription models, and maybe you just don't need them, and that they're just not going to work anyway. And Jimmy G wrote in about this and said, "Hi guys. So PS Plus went from $5 a month to $6.67 or $6.67 per month. I get that a lot of outrage is because the increase wasn't paired with specific service improvements, but a lot of it is about cost increases in general. When do you think the population at large will realize that these media subscription services have been kept artificially cheap in the 0% interest rate environment we've had over the last decade? Within the next 5 years, the services that don't fail will nearly double in price. Every high-level industry insider knows this. Every economist knows this. Currently, the cost to acquire content costs more than the lifetime value of a customer. There's no money in this game at these prices. They must go up." This is something that I wanted to say too, and it goes back to Sean Layden. I don't know if you guys remember, he gave an interview in 2021 really railing against consolidation and all of that. And people were like, "You're crazy," but he made the claim. It's like, based on the value of games, putting everything that exists on day one, you would need something like 500 million subscribers to make that work. And to make that, and it's like, that's just an impossible number to hit. So something has to necessarily give. And what gives on Game Pass is they have first and second party games, which are getting better, but they don't really bring you any third party games of consequence. I mean, a lot of the games that come are bet hedges. Like I've said over and over again. Capcom was like, Exoprimal, yes, we'll take your Game Pass money. It never goes the other way where someone wants to risk their a la carte sales to put their game on Game Pass, because Microsoft can't possibly give them the requisite value. And this is what has been said over and over again. That's why Jim Ryan said that under his understanding when they were talking to the FTC is that these things are just hemorrhaging money. And they would know. And so I think that it's important to note that we have gotten into this mode of subscription modeling in all entertainment where we simply don't understand. And I've said this before, and I want to reiterate it because I really think this is what's going to come out of this, is that there is so much shit being made that is irrelevant to the success of the platforms they appear on. And the quicker that the creatives in these places realize that it's not about quantity, but about quality, and the quicker that people on the other end, the user, realizes that they're benefiting from that ecosystem of having fewer options in the subscriptions, but of a higher quality that will nail things in better ways, that you'll get more value out of it. I think about early Netflix during its original era. So not early Netflix even streaming, but when they started getting into like House of Cards and things of that nature. And people started being like, okay, our value of Netflix is actually the original is augmented by what appears there, to the point now where no one even thinks about the things that really appear there. It's about the things that they make. But what they really should have always done is married those two things together, because it's easier to do that economically. And so I will continue to beat the drum regardless of what anyone thinks about how unhealthy this whole thing is. And we're seeing that in the flatlining of subscription modeling, which we see out of the same numbers Games Industry Biz shared, where numbers have not gone up. It's about $400 million a year in the United States is what people spend on gaming subscriptions. And that number has been the same for 2 years. So people still want to buy their games. They still see value in that. And they obviously see major value in games as a service. I just, again, I want to reiterate to people, you got to see what your own individual value is about it and not get mad or happy about something based on people's reactions, but what the value you could get out of it. Because as I said earlier, the Ramones of the world with Extra, it's a play world for him. I mean, he can do whatever. I mean, that's like the best value ever, but maybe not for me. But let's talk about these games. Number 2, on the back of PlayStation Plus's increase in pricing comes the announcement of new games coming to the Essential tier in September. Indeed, by the time some of you hear this, you will already be able to claim these games. To remind you, all PS Plus subscribers are at the Essential tier at their base and get access to free games to download each month as part of your subscription. Some months are better than others, of course, and this is one of those down months, at least for most players. The biggest game of the bunch is 2022's Saints Row reboot from developer Volition, RIP, and publisher Deep Silver, available on both PS4 and PS5 and conveniently in time for the full batch of DLC to be available for purchase a la carte or in a season pass. From this questionable starting point, we take a big step down to Generation Zero, the Systemic Reaction developed and Avalanche published open world FPS that came to PS4 in 2019. Generation Zero is an objectively bad game, though its setting and premise, late 80s Scandinavia during a robotic takeover, is definitely cool. Finally, MMORPG Black Desert Traveler Edition also comes to PS4. Developed by South Korean firm Pearl Abyss, Black Desert is in the same universe as the upcoming single-player action RPG we've recently discussed on the show, Crimson Desert, set to come to PS4 and PS5 potentially next year, hence the inclusion of this title. These 3 games join the Essential tier in place of August games beginning September 5th, and you'll have until October 2nd to claim them. As always, you should add them to your download list, even if you don't intend on playing them now, as you'll have access to them later if you change your mind, should you have an active PS Plus account at that time. All right. I got to say, I was amped to see Saints Row just because I was like, I felt it in the balls, you know? When I was talking a few weeks ago about how I kind of wanted to try it and play, and I just was simply not going to buy it at that price. And then just 2 weeks later, so they're like, oh, we'll just give it to you for free. And I'm like, that's the right price for Saints Row, and I'll go buy the DLC, and then I'll give it a go. So I'm actually quite content with having Saints Row just because I was interested in playing it. But I understand, generally speaking, why people look at this as a bad month. And I will say this. Generation Zero is bad. And no one wanted to like a game like Generation Zero more than me. This weird open world FPS, very mysterious and strange in Scandinavia in 1989. You're followed around by robots, but it sucks. Like, it really does. And I actually went and played it again, maybe not this year, but last year. And I'm like, man, I thought maybe like they were going to get something going. Remember, Avalanche split into these 3 component parts. And this is one of those component parts. The other one of the other component parts just released a fishing game that's supposed to be decent, actually, in that Call of the Wild series.
I want to play those. I want to try it because the multiplayer, it's like open world, hang out with the boys, go fishing, go hunting. I'm like, that sounds kind of cool.
They're supposed to be pretty good. It's similar to the game. It's not them, but it's similar to the games Mud Runner and Snow Runner. And they just announced a new one. I don't know if you guys saw it. I forgot to talk about it last week. I forget the name of it, where it's just like a broader and bigger game. People love that shit, dude. So shout out to Avalanche, generally speaking. Of course, Just Cause is a famous series as well, but this, Generation Zero, I don't know how. Yeah. Dude, I paid more than 1 penny for that game to give away. I don't know. That game sucks.
Yeah, I remember playing it at your apartment in Santa Monica just to try it. And I think it literally broke. I don't really have a clear memory of what that experience was like, but I remember I I didn't care at all.
The game doesn't feel alive at all. It just feels like you're in a space.
It feels like a static. It feels like somebody built geometry out in like not Unreal, just like some random engine, and you're just walking around it. Like it feels like a pre-alpha of something.
Wasn't there some thing about like a shack far away or something? And there was like
that's right. I went. How do you remember that? That's so funny.
I don't know how my mind is broken, and that's why I remember.
I was talking when I played the game about how I was on this archipelago or something, and there's all these things, and I'm trying to get, and there's this shack that's just so far away, this little house, and I'm like, oh, cool. They're trying to draw your eye, so I take all this time fighting all these robots. It takes like all this time to get there. I get to the shack, and you can't even go inside it.
Yeah,
you couldn't even explore. I'm like, what is this game? What is going on here with this game? It felt so weird, like a game that students made or that you made for nothing. And it's weird that it's still bubbling around. I guess it has a fan base of some sort. I don't know though.
It's crazy.
You can play it with others, I think, which is one of those parts that people like, but nothing here for me otherwise. But Saints Row, I'm amped about that. Definitely. Not because I think it's going to be very good, but I want to see for myself. See, we have an Immortals of Avium situation going on here. Immortals of Avium is really, really great. And that's not indicated by the general consensus. So I got to sometimes just go in and judge for myself and go in once more into the breach. You understand what I'm saying, Dustin?
Yes, I think. I'm trying to figure out right now. I thought Black Desert was free to play, and maybe it is.
It is, but this specific edition, what is it called?
The Traveler Edition.
Traveler Edition comes with the DLC.
Yeah.
The DLC. I was looking. So this is a $30 purchase currently before it goes on PlayStation Plus. You get the value pack 15 days, the Pearl Box 1,000, a polar bear.
What the fuck is happening? What are you saying?
Horse Emblem Tier 7.
What was the first thing about days? Do you have to buy days in the game or something? Or
this is I'm here. I'll send you the link of what exactly.
Yeah, but just read it to me. Just read it to me. Okay.
Black Desert Traveler Edition includes the following: Black Desert Game Access, full game. Traveler Edition pack.
I got it here.
Value pack 15
days.
What does that mean?
Do you have to pay for your time in the game? Is that what it is? Oh, Trainer's Flute 30 days maybe. So it only works for that many days. It's active maybe for that many days, and then you have to repurchase the buff or whatever it might be.
I don't know,
man.
Pearl Abyss. I'm interested in Crimson Desert, but that's somehow connected to this, but I don't know how. All these games are kind of blurring together. This looks like Babylon's Fall and like the design of the character here. On this page.
Very.
Jesus Christ.
Very. I always hate the term uninspired because it kind of implies the opposite, or like it. You know, I've always hated that. It's like it's very uninspired because it's too similar to this thing. And it's like, well,
good point.
Wouldn't that? Okay.
Would that mean it's just spired?
Spired.
it's just spired. Oh fuck.
That's all we have for the news, though. Is just all this PlayStation Plus chatter.
Yeah.
So we can end our episode as we always do with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience on patreon.com/laststandmedia. Thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support out there. We appreciate you. The thread goes live each week on the newsfeed, by the way. Put your stuff in there. I read through it. I delete the thread when it's gone. So if you don't find the thread, it's because there is no active thread right now. So you don't waste your time submitting when we don't need. Andrew Walsh wrote in and said, hello, you absolute beauties. This one is mainly for Colin. We can all talk about this, though. You haven't mentioned the PlayStation Stars program in a minute. Wondering if you're still grinding away at collectibles, and if so, how many coins do you have? Every time I get enough to redeem a $5 voucher, I do, but there are some other cool stuff you can spend coins on. Dredge is on there for 6,250 coins, which I know you were interested in before. Thanks for all the amazing content and making my commute to work a whole lot better. So I intentionally I wanted to sign in to see what I would earn when I went, because I haven't been in it in a while on PlayStation Stars.
Let's take a look.
So let me go here. I'm going to click on it. And I have 13,850 points.
Is that a lot? Is that a little?
Yeah, I think that's a lot. So that would allow me to, with that. So for instance, you can buy individual games like you said. So right now I could get Cuphead for 5,000 points. Moss for 5,000 points. Dredge for 6,250. Stardew Valley for 3,750. But For 5,000 points, I can get $20 on the PSN. So I have 13,850. So I can probably get like 50-ish, $45-ish right now on the PSN. So that's pretty good. But the thing is that I still feel like it's kind of incoherent and it's too much based on making you play certain things, which I just don't find fun. I don't want to just start games up to earn points. And I see some of them and I'm like, oh, I could just do that. But it's not how I really want to play. Probably similar to how people feel about trophies, although there's more riding on this because you earn points and make money on it, but it's not even that much money. It's cool, though. I think PlayStation Stars is good. They need to find a way to integrate it with PSN to be on the PlayStation console. So you can see it, you can display things, you can interact with it. Some sort of inclusion, like having your PSN, you have like that trophy icon, depending on what you have. It could be bronze, silver, gold, whatever. And then the different accoutrements on it, but maybe there could be a little number over it that shows your PlayStation Stars ranking or something. I don't know. I think it's a cool thing. I just don't think they're really pushing it very hard. Have you guys messed with it at all, Dustin?
Yeah, I was just looking at mine. Which this makes sense because I don't buy games digitally, but I have 3,916 points, which is actually not too far off to buy. There's some interesting looking games on it. You can get Dredge for 6,250 points, which I've heard that's a great game. Moss on here is pretty interesting as well. But yeah, I don't really check in with it too much. The collectibles are cool, but I mean, I want to view them in PlayStation Home too. I want to have them on my virtual shelf or something. Not actually necessarily, but I do think it's weird that there's just this kind of like, ooh, cool. I can look at the PlayStation aim controller on my phone and think, wow, I own that digitally on my account. Wow. Value. I think it's obviously the gold coin aspect is much more interesting just because you can get a free game or two. And not that the collectibles are bad, but it would be cool if there was just a little, if I could view them on my PS5, even that would be a little something. So.
Yeah. That's I have agreement with you there. Anything to add, Chris?
No, I have not messed with this at all. There's too much gamification in general of everything else. And so many of the games that well, not so many, but a lot of the games that I do play already have elements of this where, you got to progress through the levels by doing X or Y challenge or playing this playlist, doing this PvE event. And it's like, it's kind of like the similar thing where it's like, oh, to earn this amount of points, play farm a potato in Stardew Valley. All right. I'm all right. I don't need this extending outside of a single game into my overall ecosystem. I don't got the patience for it. I think it's a neat little thing. I do think they should probably, if they wanted to be of any real value to most players, it should integrate with the PS5 in a more real, tangible way. And they should probably have a number, like some kind of display. But even if that was the case, it wouldn't necessarily attract me. It's for a very specific type of consumer, and that's entirely fine.
Urgent news: new G.I. Joe game announced.
Yeah,
it actually looks damn good.
Oh, really?
G.I. Joe: Wrath of Cobra. It's announced only for Steam and Switch so far, but I'll do what I have to do. Looks fucking awesome.
It looks very. It looks very Colin.
Yeah,
I like that. Oh man, look at that ray tracing.
Dude, it looks so good. I mean, these are all
reflections.
These are Cobra officers. That's Duke fighting. The hiss tank is in one of the shots, which is cool. Roadblock is in one of the shots. Both Snake Eyes and Timber, his dog, fighting the Cobra officers. This looks great. Very exciting. It's time to get G.I. Joe back. All right. Let me see here. Let's move on to the next one. Christian Colta wrote in. Said, hey guys, on June 9th, Matt Piscatella from Circana tweeted, quote, according to Circana's player pulse so far in the US during 2023, 47% of console video game players are female. That's plus 1% year over year. 50% of PC video game players are female. 54% of mobile video game players are female. Then followed up with 41% of PS5s in the US are female owned. 45% of Xbox Series X consoles are female owned. 52% of Switch consoles are female owned. 50% of gaming PCs are female owned. This challenges a long-term view that Colin and I had that female gamer numbers aren't equal to male gamer numbers unless you count the Candy Crush players like my mom. That does not seem to be true. I remember waiting at the time for your comments on it, but it never came. So what do you think about them? I never saw these stats, but I wanted to read them here. At the time, I didn't see them. Also, Matt Piscatella blocked me, so I wouldn't see this stuff on Twitter anyway. I have no idea why. I've never had an interaction with him in my life. But probably made fun of the MPD at some point, you would imagine. So here's the thing is that I don't believe these numbers. I don't know where they're getting these numbers, but these numbers, it's not to say that I wish these numbers were true. Dude, I fucking wish that was true. That doesn't comport with any version of reality I've experienced in my life as a player of video games, as a consumer, social person, whatever. I just 50-50 PS4 and basically on Xbox and PS4. Or 45-55, whatever. It just seems hard to believe. I don't understand where are all the women then that we're certainly our content, unfortunately, I guess I understand why, because it's so fucking stupid, doesn't attract a female audience necessarily, but I just don't see this reflected in that. So I don't believe that. I just don't believe that. I don't know it just seems that doesn't, you're asking me to betray my own eyes.
Right.
I wish that there were more women involved in core console gaming. I wish that were true.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time for sure where I feel like this would have been difficult for me to believe, but for whatever reason, the last several years, both interpersonally and just in real life and just the people that I've interacted with, I see this being more believable because pretty much every woman that I have met in the last 5 years plays video games in some capacity. And I don't mean like Candy Crush. I'm talking about like, Witcher and like Destiny and like these really like specific games that I would consider to be pretty hardcore. And I don't think they play as many or as much. And they're probably not as interested in the ins and outs of like the industry in the same way. And as a result, they probably don't engage with content about it. Like, as far as I know, like I know a lot of women who play video games who aren't really interested in content about it. They don't watch, they don't listen to video game podcasts. They don't really watch video game oriented creators because I guess they just get enough out of the game. But like, Animal Crossing is obviously a big deal. Which isn't exactly, I wouldn't consider it necessarily a hardcore game, but it's definitely not Candy. It's a step away from Candy Crush and these, I don't know, Hexic or whatever. So based on my personal experience and people like meeting people, I could see this being a lot more true today than it was maybe 7 years ago, where that was a lot harder of a sell. I think a lot of it, and honestly, I think a lot of it is just because, a lot of us have grown up and introduced so many of the women in our lives to video games in a way that maybe wasn't as true in 2013, or at least in the same way. And they're definitely more accessible. There's more reasons to own a console today than there used to be. Especially because we interact with all of our media through these things, and it's a really convenient way to do it. They function way better than smart TVs and Rokus, that's for sure. So outside of just the general benefit of having a console in the home just for media consumption, I think that does generally lead to an inherent curiosity where it's like, oh, what's this then? What else is on here? I do think there is still a possibility that these numbers might not be accurate, but I don't know, man. I do find this a lot more believable today than I would have found it believable in like 2014 or 2013. I guess that's just, again, based on my insular kind of bubble or the bubbles that I peruse,
I think women are gaming more than ever, which I think is great. The ideal would be we would have just like TV and film, where we would have, there's just no noticeable gender gap at all in these things.
Right.
It just is what it is. And that would be great for games to achieve that too. But when I when I see stats like this, I do this in politics a lot, where you see like polling numbers or whatever. And I reduce it to, okay, so it just in my head to note it, 55 PS5 owners are male. 45 PS5 owners would be female. 55 and 45. It just seems, I don't know. It just seems implausible. I don't know. Dustin, what do you have to say about this?
So first of all, I agree with you, Chris, that I think that more women are playing on console than ever before, right? Like, I think that these numbers could be more believable now, but I really want to know what the methodology of the answers are. For example, I own an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5, but specifically the Series X we'll say right now. My wife, Holly, played Dragon Quest XI on Game Pass on the Series X that I own. Would she own a Series X if she wasn't married to me? No, absolutely not. Is she considered a Series X console gamer because she played up my Series X? You know what I mean? Like if there was a survey and Holly had the survey and she says, yes, I own a Series X because she's married to me and I own it, right? And she's played it. So I wonder if there is some element of like, if you were to survey a woman who is married to a man who has these things and she also uses them, does that count as a primary user of the console? You know?
Yeah.
Because I can definitely believe that 52% of Switch owners are females, because I think that that's an extremely popular console obviously it's almost 50-50, but I feel like it's pretty ubiquitous in that there are tons of people that want to play Mario and stuff like that. And a game like Animal Crossing, I think, is particularly appealing to female interests.
Stardew Valley is another one that's like huge on Switch, and like every woman that I know plays Stardew Valley, like specifically on Switch, which is interesting.
That Holly played Stardew Valley on PC and on Switch. She played a ton, and she played Animal Crossing, and she has her own of the consoles we have in her house. That's the one that she has her own of. So, but yeah, I'm not sure. I think that these numbers definitely feel a little off, and I question how exactly they reach them. But I definitely think that more women are gaming casually on consoles than ever before, and I think that's awesome. Like you said though, Colin, they're not necessarily listening to Sacred Symbols.
Oh my god, not at all.
I could see in the YouTube analytics, it'll tell you what your split is, and
it's a sausage party.
It's sausage fest here.
Yeah,
but shout out to the. I don't know. Should I say the percentages? Should we keep that a secret?
I don't know. Isn't it like 2% or 3% or something like that?
Okay, last 28 days. Female audience says 6.4%.
Whoa!
So booming. That actually is kind of
that's good. That's great. I don't think there's anything necessarily that would. I don't know. You don't want to categorize women all being the same, but
we got to do it. We got to do a calendar.
Dude, it's funny you said that, because I wasn't thinking about doing a sexy calendar, but that was one of the ideas I presented to Micah. I think I presented to Dustin too, is that I did want to do a calendar for 2024 of all of us, but I didn't want it to be like a sexy calendar, but we could do a sexy calendar. That would be interesting.
That'd be so funny.
But it's so funny because if this is true, then it happened, as was noted, so rapidly that nothing is really doing service to the audience of growing women gamers, really. And I don't mean, I got to be honest with you, and I don't mean to be mean, but I do find that, and maybe this is just, maybe people disagree, but it's like women gamers, like we do women gamer content or whatever. It's like, I've always found that mega lame. I just want it to be that everyone's attracted to the same kinds of content, you know?
It would be like if we was like man's corner.
Yeah, like, right, exactly.
You know, where it's like
IGN had a girl podcast, like gaming podcast, and I was like, oh, this is so, it didn't do very well and it went away, but it was like, this is so lame. This is almost reinforcing the gender norm as opposed to just having women on our content. Like Mike is now on our content and all the rest. So I think that that's generally positive. I'd love to hear people's anecdotes out there though, about what they're experiencing. I will say that my sister Allie plays games, but she always has, and she was doing it when from in the 80s when that was not a thing, or not much of a thing, and it's because of her influence of Dagon, I think, as well. And then her daughter plays Switch, and she actually messaged me the other day that it was cute. She texted me saying like that she was playing a lot more of it recently. I was like, that's great. Probably because I was making fun of her on one of the shows and it got back to her. But Dagon's daughter doesn't play games. So these are all anecdotes. Like my cousins don't play games. My aunts don't play games, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh yeah. My aunts aren't playing games. Absolutely. but like my nieces and nephews and everybody in my family who's younger, like male or female, they're playing games, which is awesome. But I do think a lot of that is a tribute to just like kind of like I'll always have some kind of mission. Like I gave my PS4 Pro to my niece because she really wanted one. She's on Xbox, and I was like, yo, you have so much. She's not played a single PlayStation game, and I was like, absolutely. Like, take my PS4 Pro. You have a lot of stuff to catch up on. And I do think that maybe is part of it. I also think like gaming is so big now and so much more accepted than it used to be that it becomes unavoidable for women in some way, where it's like, oh, okay, well, the guy I'm seeing clearly is playing something. So let me, I don't know, at least see what's going on. And I do think that in and of itself opens up a door and gets a lot of people interested in ways that they probably otherwise wouldn't have. I do think, there was definitely a point where Candy Crush was the main, or mobile games in general were the main thing that were counted in these percentages. And I always thought that was like a dumb way to do it because it's very clearly not the same thing. But I do think the gap is closing pretty significantly now, which is cool. Yeah, but I don't think they're going to engage with content in the same way.
Yeah, it's clear that what I'm saying is that I don't. It's not that I don't want that to be true.
Of course,
I just don't think it is because even meme culture in games, like none of it represents that reality, which is so interesting. You'd think that more of it. For instance, with the PlayStation beep, when the beep was able to be muted on PS5, that was a big deal because you can hide from your wives. Right. It still seems like such a boys club. And maybe that does lead into why there have to be these alternate spaces.
Yeah, but I
try not to do that on like our show's really not like that. But I don't know. It just bums me out because I want to speak to the common gamer, which is apparently much more female than we thought.
Yeah. I will also say that PS5 beep thing is I don't want to say an elderly. I feel like, I don't know. I have never once felt the need to hide that. You know what I mean? And maybe I'm of a certain age and I'm not trying to hide when I'm playing games, or maybe because this is the job that I do, I don't have nearly enough responsibility to even bother having that be a problem. But
oh yeah, I could give a fuck less personally.
Yeah, exactly. But so I do feel like it's one of those things where it's like a 50-year-old guy.
But dude, some dudes are out there with them fucking hags. You know what I mean?
Hags. It's like a madman.
Them old battle axes. You know?
Yeah, she's a real battle axe.
All right.
What the fuck?
Oh, you gotta use that word more often.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brady Godbout wrote in and said, "Hey crew, do you think we'll ever see the return of consoles from companies like Atari, Sega, SNK, Neo Geo, etc.? Legit consoles, not mini consoles or emulation machines. To me, the most obvious answer why we don't see these consoles from these corporations and others now is money and consolidation of resources, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on whether any of you think there will ever be an environment where we'll see the return of consoles from any of these kinds of companies." No, I don't think that at all. I do wonder about what the future of gaming from a service perspective looks like. So when everything goes to the cloud eventually, which it will, and then there are these verticals in the cloud where you log into your PlayStation account, and so then you have access to all these different things that has nothing to do with any hardware except for hardware from afar. Will it still be Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Steam or Valve or whatever? Or will there be a Samsung or one of these companies kind of elbows their way in because it becomes more about that? And that's why I think that the companies you're listing, Brady, and what I wanted to speak about it real quick, and I'll throw it to the guys if they have anything to say, but won't put them on the spot, is that those companies are never going to make new consoles. They have nowhere near enough capital to manufacture hardware. And no one's going to want to do business with a company that can't proliferate their hardware and make money on software. So those companies are out of it. The companies, so Atari is doing some 50th anniversary thing for 2600, I think, which is cool. Yeah. And I'll definitely check that out. Some of my favorite games of all time are on the on Atari 2600. So like River Raid, a game I absolutely love, made by a woman. Roberta Williams, I think, made that game. So SNK, absolutely not. Sega is doing great, probably better than they've ever done in the post-console space. But they don't have the capital either. You need beaucoup bucks. So there are companies that are obvious that could get involved and are involved in some way. So when everything goes to a digital only ecosystem, there's nothing really differentiating Apple from the others, as an example, because now you're all in this space where you're playing on whatever you want. So it would require a big company like that. Google's obviously in there too. Small companies, no way. You need dominant position. And some of the companies that are going to try to, nestle their way into games will be companies that already do this in other spaces. So Netflix is probably the biggest example of this. Amazon's doing it in a smaller way with investing in studios and games, that New World game and everything else. But Netflix is trying to really get games going. And so I would imagine you'll see some crossover there. But no, none of the smaller companies, I don't think. You guys have anything you want to add?
I think you got it.
All right.
Yeah.
I was saddened by this next one. Alex wrote in and said, "Good morrow, sacred squires. A question for you all on a feature on the PS5 that is not often talked about. Have you ever used the hide your games from other players feature? I've used it to hide some of my more weebish tendencies from mates who tend to fit it into a more mainstream gaming mold, FIFA, COD, etc. Mainly to save myself the inevitable bashing I'd get from them if they saw me dipping in for a quick shame game in Dragon Quest Heroes 2. It's just easier not to have to defend that kind of activity. I'm a Brit, so I'm eminently accustomed to deeply repressing any form of social self-expression. But have you three balls out loud and proud Yanks ever had the need for a secret session safely away from prying eyes? Clearly there's a demand for it, otherwise Sony wouldn't have built it in. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. That bummed me out. It wasn't probably supposed to. It was supposed to be self-deprecating and funny, and it was. Alex, I'll give you that. I love you're eminently accustomed to deeply repressing any form of social self-expression. It's very funny. British people are very interesting. But why hide the weebishness? If anything, they should be hiding from you that they are so peripherally involved with such a wonderful hobby that all they do is play the mainstream games. You should be the one that's flexing and saying, I play those games, but I also explore this other stuff. Maybe you can even turn them into weebs yourself. Dragon Quest Heroes is awesome, by the way. I never played the second one, but the first one's awesome. Did this bum you out too, Dustin, when you read it?
Yeah. First of all, it sounds like you need new friends if they're going to judge you that harshly for playing a game like Dragon Quest. And that's the thing is that, do we really have to say that's like, oh, if you play Dragon Quest Heroes, then you're this, you're that. Just let people, you can enjoy whatever game you want. It doesn't mean you're automatically going to get a label put on you unless your friends are that shitty. And maybe they are. But, if you want to play Dragon Quest Heroes, just do it loud and proud. And if your friends make fun of you for that, I don't know. Who cares? I don't know. This seems weird. Have I ever hidden my games, though? No, I can't think of any. I'm not playing any kind of weird titty games on PS5. I don't need to do that. There's nothing I would
Are you playing them somewhere else?
No, I'm not playing them anywhere, unfortunately. Maybe I should pick that up, though, on Steam. Dude, they got some wild shit on Steam.
Oh, I know.
Dude, it's lunacy.
I've looked because I was one time in my Steam settings and they're like, you can choose to unhide adult games from your list. Like, what the fuck is this? So I just took a quick peruse to see what was on offer.
Quick. Yeah.
Weird shit. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I did not partake. But I'm curious.
But
some of the stuff on stream is crazy.
They got something going on there.
I only bought like 100 of them.
Sure.
But like, which is not even a fraction of how many are there. So like, I'm not weird, believe me. But
they're like, you'll come in 3 seconds if you play this game.
it's like those pop-up ads
on Steam though. You got to be careful because you have the 2-hour return policy, right? So you have to make sure they don't come.
That's right. You got to make sure they come in 2 hours and 1 minute.
2 hours and 1 minute. Yeah. I don't know, man.
Or come early with the promise to come again.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know.
To be continued.
I don't know. I feel like we really
TBC
really
to be continued.
Continue.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Alex, don't be ashamed of playing Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest is awesome. I hope you play when Infinity Strash comes out.
Oh yeah,
in September. You got to play that loud and proud to your FIFA brethren.
Yeah. Don't be a.
Don't be like, what's going on, mate? What are you doing here? Playing
Infinity Strash.
Infinity Strash.
Infinity Strash. That's it's a Lara Croft. Lara Croft Returns. Infinity. No, I don't know. You got to get new friends, man. You got to get friends who aren't gonna. If you were my friend and I saw you playing Dragon Quest, I would kill you. I'd shoot you with a gun and then put you in a brass bowl, like a la ancient Greece. Watch the sun melt you. But just find new friends, and then you're all set.
How did you live with Sweeney?
It's because I don't care. It's fine.
Because I thought at the live event we were talking One Piece. We were, he's plays Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, he's degenerate.
Yeah. He's
caught up, isn't he?
Well, he's the reason why I have such a disdain.
Oh, right.
I was surrounded by just this nonsense. But no.
All right, 2 more. Philip wrote in and said, "Hello, CDC. I'm pretty excited to play Sea of Stars. In anticipation of the release, I went ahead and watched the IGN video review. To my dismay, the reviewer went ahead and spoiled so much of the game, including bosses, key moments of the story, and future party members that join up with you later in the game. My question is, how the hell does this keep happening with larger outlets like IGN? Is this something that was talked about when you did this type of work when you were there? Thanks for the great content." I saw this making the rounds. Did you guys see this? That people were really upset about the Sea of Stars review at IGN? I had this very strict review, and I used to get in trouble with it sometimes because people were annoying there, but I did it anyway, which was if I wouldn't show, and you could go and test the theory, generally speaking, for any video review I did, no more than 3 hours into the game would I show. Once you were at the 3, no matter what game it was, it could have been Wolfenstein, it could have been a Fallout game, it could have been whatever. Mass Effect 3 was a notable one because I only did it so I would go into a capture bay where with like all the sophisticated machines that I didn't really know how to use, someone would come set me up, and then I would just capture the game for 3 hours and then I would just leave. Yeah. And that's what the video review is primarily made up of. And I remember when I did the Mass Effect 3 review, so that was in 2012, I guess, that the editor-in-chief at the time was like, "You really got to capture more footage and like make the game like," and I'm like, "I'm not doing that. Like you cannot risk being the reason that you spoil something for someone. So you shouldn't be capturing so deep into the game that's even a risk anyway, because once you hand over the footage at a place like IGN to the reviewer, there might be some people that like Destin that probably does everything for a video review, but most of the time you write and record and then you hand it over to a video editor with your footage and they do all that work. So they're not going to know. So they're going to put in so you got to not even give them the option to do that. So that sucks. I feel bad for them, but that would have never happened. I never did that at IGN. Not at my IGN.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, Philip. You say, "I'm pretty excited to play Sea of Stars." So you're planning on playing it.
Right. Yeah.
And then you went and watched the review.
Right.
I'm not, what IGN did was wrong. But also, why are you watching the review for a game you're excited about? Just go experience it.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you. I have not seen 1 second of this game since it was announced. I saw that first announcement thing and not anything else more. I've seen a few screenshots. I know what it looks like. Box art. The Japanese box art's really good. Did you see the Japanese box art? Really good. Way better than the Western box art, which is also good. I like the Western box art's cool because it has the moon as like a really big piece of the box, but there's just more characters in the other one. All right. Finally, Cody Rayburn wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC, what are your preferred leveling systems in games? Do you like the kind that focus on stat boosts so you can grind and eventually brute force your way through a once tough encounter? Or do you prefer a non-statistical system that gives you new abilities and tools? Maybe a system that does a mix of both, though I feel like most games do this that aren't focused or well balanced. On a side note, I'm really tired of stat gear being shoehorned into games that don't need it. I'm looking at you, God of War. Amen." Leveling. Chris, how do you prefer leveling? There's so many different ways to have it. I know you're not into Japanese role-playing games, but I do love Final Fantasy style leveling where you just level up random numbers or percentages of all of your stats. So it'll be like, attack, defense, all these things. It'll be like 1, 3, 1, 0, 5. You just are getting stronger and stronger. I love leveling in games to his point where you could brute force your way through anything. That's why I've always found Japanese role-playing games and role-playing games as traditional turn-based role-playing games so appealing, and why I'm so turned off by games that try to tweak it even a little bit, like Fire Emblem used to do with not allowing you to have any non-linearity where you have to kind of just use what you have and do the best you can. Another game like that was, what was that trilogy of strategy role-playing games? This Banner Saga was very similar, where it got so difficult. And so I'm turned off, and Tactics Ogre Reborn, where they had the level cap. I'm like, fuck this shit. Let me brute force. That's what leveling's all about to me. So that's my favorite kind of leveling. But the games that are the worst are games where you don't even care. The upgrades are so stupid or useless that you don't even care. There are games like that Far Cry, one of the Far Cry games is like that, I think, where I'm like, I don't even care. I have everything I need, whatever else. It's like your grenade goes twice as far. So I don't give a shit.
A lot of Far Cry games are kind of like that, to be
it's
fair.
Like, you run 5% faster. I'm like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
So where are you on this?
I don't know. I didn't even think about it until this question, really, but I don't really think that much about leveling in the games that I play, because usually the games that I play that do have leveling in them are so gameplay oriented that I'm more focused on that. I do like the way, even though it is really clunky and it is really kind of dumb if you really think about it, that in Skyrim you could just, sneak forever and upgrade your sneak. It's not all that compelling, but for whatever reason it worked for me. It was like very simple for me to figure out, and that game had a pretty meaningful skill tree as far as like RPGs go, and I remember liking that. I think to me, as long as I'm given meaningful things to do with my levels, I don't mind how I get there. So I think about certain skill trees in certain games where, I mean, you mentioned Far Cry, where it's like, oh, your grenade goes 4 feet further. And It's like, that stuff's not really as interesting to me as, oh, you just leveled up. Now you can do this insane move that you can then chain with all your other stuff. Basically like adding mechanics or adding tools to your sandbox that otherwise wouldn't be there, as opposed to just stat increases. That's my preferred leveling system. But even in some of the games that I've played where it is just sort of, your attack is 5% stronger, I don't mind that either. It really does depend on the overall game. I like the way Elden Ring did it, even though that's a pretty, old school way of doing that, I assume. But I don't think about leveling that much. And maybe it's just because I don't play that many games that orbit around the concept of leveling. Like even Destiny is like, there's levels in Destiny, but it's not really the same thing. That's more like, oh, this is how much damage you can do in like a high level activity, and that's really it. You can still chain a bunch of shit, even if you're level 0 and you just have all the stuff unlocked. You can still do all the cool shit. So I don't know. It's a good question. I feel like I have to think so much about it, though.
Well, I think just that there's so many ways to upgrade it. And I was thinking as you were talking that because he said at the end of his letter, looking at you, God of War, with the stat being shoehorned into games, I think people felt like that about Kill the Justice League as well. And there's that meme of the card getting off at the exit at the last second. And so it's like speeding off. That's kind of that game delaying itself at the last second, because people realize that maybe they are shoehorning sort of these leveling meta structures on top of each other in games where they just don't need them. See, I like games where you just have one way to really improve your overall abilities. You can have equipment and all of that, but just one way to invest in yourself is good enough for me. And anything more than that's too much in most cases. Dustin, where are you on this case and this question?
This is a boring answer, but it really just depends on the game for me. I guess immediately, of course, what comes to mind is Dark Souls and the ability to really go and level up, or Elden Ring, where a lot of people that were having problems, I would say, go do other stuff and level up. And then, very traditional RPG aspect where it's like, if you're having a hard time, you're probably under leveled. You just need to go and explore more of the game and come back. But at the same time, we were talking about Sekiro and Armored Core. These are action games where you don't level up, but you do unlock new abilities throughout the play of the game. And it's just a different mindset if the game is, designed in the right way, that can also be really satisfying to play as well. I will say I don't have a preference for the other. The thing that sometimes I run into problems with when it comes to more traditional leveling systems with stats and stuff is that I have run into cases where I have not accidentally, but gotten through a tough encounter that maybe I shouldn't have. And then it feels like you're kind of fucked after that. 'Cause you're like, I really probably shouldn't have done that. And now I'm in a really, really tough situation because I was maybe a little bit too good. But like my strategy was able to outweigh.
You're just too good.
in that moment, not very often, but it has happened where it's like, ooh, I probably shouldn't have been able to do that. And so then it puts you in a tough situation. So I will say real quick, Baldur's Gate, one of the most unique, and it's not even really unique because I know it's based on D&D, but that game, I believe, has 12 levels, 10 levels. And so leveling up in that game is a really big deal. I remember particularly getting from level 4 to level 5, your fighter. So my main character is a fighter. When you get to level 5, you can now attack twice in a turn instead of one time. So you're literally doubling your damage output potential. And this is pretty interesting approach. As I said, it's not new. It's based on Dungeons and Dragons, but it was fun to be playing a game where, with there being only 10 levels or 12, whatever it is, I don't know exactly. It's a different thought process of playing something like Elden Ring where you level up to like 70 or something like that. So it's cool to see the different types of leveling and how it applies to games. And like I said, it just all depends on its implementation.
Oh, well said. And we'll leave it there. One more piece of passing news, by the way, that just popped up. Layoffs at Gearbox. Unclear.
Man, the Embracer reckoning.
Yeah. So probably more places are going to be affected too, but we'll have to wait till next time to talk more about that. And in the meantime, that's it. That'll probably be one of the shortest episodes we've done in a while. Just not that much to talk about this week, really.
Yeah.
All the news is with Starfield and with Xbox right now, so we'll let them have their shine and enjoy that over at Defining Dupe. But let's go around the horn and say goodbye to everyone. Chris, good day to you, my friend. Have a good rest of your day.
I shall. I'll be streaming tonight, hopefully, for the launch of this Starfield coming up. So
cool, man. Have fun.
Yeah.
Dustin, good day to you.
Good day. I will not be playing Starfield, even though I want to. I'm probably just going to be grinding away at Armored Core and still Baldur's Gate. I didn't bring that up in what we've been playing because I have nothing new to say. I'm still in Act 2, doing the same kinds of things, having a great time. But just we'll be doing that. Have fun in Starfield, everybody. I will join you soon enough.
All right, my friends. And I'm going to go play. Well, I have some work to do here and then maybe beat Immortals of Avium tonight and then get back into Alan Wake for my second playthrough this weekend, get my notes together. And then.
Wait, you're going to do a second playthrough of Alan Wake?
Yeah. I said that earlier that I was going to.
There's a new game plus in that game?
Yeah, you actually have to beat it twice or you play it on night. Yeah. So you have to play it on Nightmare difficulty from the beginning. I think you can do this, but Nightmare difficulty has to be beaten, and you have to get all of the collectibles that only appear in Nightmare difficulty. There are extra manuscript pieces.
Oh, I did not know that. Actually,
yes. So it's gonna be Immortals of Avium. Hopefully, platinum that. Alan Wake. Hopefully, platinum that. And then Sea of Stars, I think. And then I think I'm clear until Infinity Strash, I want to say, and that's late September. So I think in there, I'll probably get Saints Row in there and maybe Spider-Man, start getting Spider-Man in there because I want to replay Spider-Man in preparation. That was the whole point of playing Alan Wake as well. So I'm feeling pretty good right now. Plus football is going to begin. So I'm going to have to be playing a lot on the backbone and then ultimately on the PlayStation Portal as well when that finally comes November 15th. But in the meantime, it's time to go. My friends, be well. Good to see you guys. Good to see all of you out there. Appreciate your love, kindness, and support of all things Last Stand Media and Sacred Symbols. Patreon.com/Last Stand Media for early ad-free access and more access to the Discord and so on and so forth. LastStandMedia.store for merch. I think that's it. We'll see you next time. Till then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.